Good afternoon. This is the special joint meeting of the Oakley City Council and the Oakley Planning Commission. And I would like to start off with roll call. Councilmember Fuller,
Here.
Councilmember Meadows,
Here.
Councilmember Williams,
Here.
Vice Mayor Henderson.
Here.
I am Mayor Shannon Shaw. We also have Chair Chuko,
Present.
Commissioner Price, Commissioner Krieg.
Here.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Here.
And I would like to note that Vice Chair Verduzco is absent. And can I please have you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, we're going to move on to item 3, which is public comments on non-agenda items. I do not have any speaker cards for non-agenda items. If there's anyone in the public that wishes to speak, otherwise, for non-agenda? All right, did you fill out a speaker card? Oh. All right, Roman, go ahead. You got to just come to the podium for me.
Good afternoon. My name is Roman Howdy, and I wanted to bring up the issue of 4501 Main Street. I recently received a paper from ARCO PB Productions, and they're requesting a permit, ABC permit for selling hard liquor, I believe. And I just wanted to make sure that the city of Oakley was aware of all the police history that that location has, and the decision going forward. Think it would definitely impact my neighborhood. I don't know if there's something we could do about it, since there has been shootings, raids, trespassing into the neighboring properties, including my backyard. So yeah, that's all I really got.
All right, thank you. And I believe that would have to come before the Planning Commission when that time comes, correct?
Correct.
All right.
And when would that be?
What's that?
When would that be? Like
You would,
that decision?
At this time, I don't know. Just, Ken, do you have an idea? Sure.
Through the mayor, thank you. Ken Strelo, Community Development Director. We are aware that ARCO has requested that through ABC. They have not submitted a conditional use permit through the city at this time. When they do, we would start the processing. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you very much. And we will close item 3. And we are going to move into item 4.1, which is the City of Oakley Climate Action Plan, Goals, Targets, and Actions. This is a joint work session with the City Council and the Planning Commission. Our Community Development Director, Ken Strelo, is going to kick it off, but I do want to let you know, those in the audience, we're going to take public comments on this after the presentation.
Sounds great. Thank you, and good evening, members of the City Council, to the mayor, vice chair, vice mayor, and chair of the Planning Commission, other members of the Planning Commission. Thank you all for being able to join tonight. Tonight, we will have a presentation by Luis Spanius with our consultant Cumming Group. And the goal of tonight's joint work session is to have delivered the goals, targets, and actions that are in draft format right now for the City of Oakley Climate Action Plan. The Climate Action Plan is a plan that was in the specific plan 27 plus adopted by the City Council with the goal of having it adopted in 2025, and I'm proud to say we're well on track to have that done. So this is the first joint Planning Commission and City Council work session for this. We have had one public workshop. And without getting into too much detail, I'll ask Louis to come up. He has a short PowerPoint presentation to show, to give you an update of what we have done thus far, and then kind of run through everything. And then I know he has a plan to go through the attachment to your staff report and to take any comments on that. Thank you very much. And without further ado, Louis.
All right. Oop. Thanks very much. Well, thank you all for having me. Thanks, Ken, for the introduction. Again, my name is Luis Spanias. I am with Cumming Group. We're a project management cost accounting firm. We have about 50 offices plus across the country, but we have a energy and sustainability group that focuses on a range of those issues, but we do have a group that focuses on climate action planning for cities. And so that is my job here with the city, and it's a great privilege to be in front of you tonight, so thank you. I'll keep the presentation brief because there's some work we need to do tonight. Ken spoke to it a little bit ago. In particular, we wanted to do a little bit of a report out. You know, there has been some discussion about the climate action plan. Some of you were at the workshop back in November, but we want to follow up to let you know sort of where we've been and what we've learned through that process. But what we really want to do tonight is to collect some initial input from the folks in this room on what is an initial menu of goals, targets, and actions for the plan, and I'll get more into that in a moment. So just as a quick review, Ken spoke to this, so I'm not going to rehash too much. This plan is intended to align the city of Oakley with the state of California's emissions goal, which is to achieve carbon neutrality by 2045. But there are also a number of additional priorities with that. We want to align with Strategic Plan 27 plus, and we also want to make sure not only that we are aligned with the City of Oakley's other planning efforts, but that we are also thinking about the impacts to Oakley based on current and projected impacts of different climate hazards. So this climate action plan isn't just talking about the pathways to reduce emissions from greenhouse gases, but we are also thinking about the city of Oakley and its community's vulnerability and risk to various climate hazards. So we'll talk a bit about what we've learned tonight. There's certainly more to get into than what's on this particular slide, but I think there are a few key things that we can draw from the analytical component of our work, namely that a majority of the greenhouse gas emissions in Oakley, whether you're looking at emissions from municipal operations and assets, or whether you're looking community-wide, the residential and commercial sector, a lot of the emissions, over 80% come from transportation. So fuel combustion and vehicles moving throughout Oakley, and those include also the fleets owned and managed by the city. There is a small subset of emissions that can be attributed to buildings, but a lot of that does come from natural gas. There's an even smaller sliver of that does come from electricity. But the interesting thing about Oakley's emissions trajectory is that the California Renewable Portfolio Standard, which requires the state to have 100% carbon-free electricity by 2045, will mean that effectively for you all in other jurisdictions, you won't have to worry about carbon emissions from your electricity, but that does leave these residual emissions from natural gas use as well as transportation. And with respect to the climate vulnerability and risk piece of it, there are a number of long-term effects that we've identified from climate change that will impact Oakley not only through mid-century but beyond. These are changes to precipitation amounts and patterns. We're thinking about increased likelihood and magnitude of flooding, sea level rise, extreme heat days, and wildfire. And the thing is, with all of these different hazards, they have disproportionate effects on different communities. When we're thinking about things like extreme heat days, for example, these are the types of hazards that pose greater risks to certain communities. So we want to be thinking about that component as well in this plan. Just want to quickly touch on the workshop that Ken mentioned. This is one of 2 workshops that we are hosting throughout this planning process. We had a really terrific turnout back in November at the Rec Center. I just wanted to highlight a few of the different themes that came up as we engaged different residents about what their vision was for climate action in Oakley. A few of those are listed here. This is certainly not the most comprehensive list, but this stood out. Primarily safe alternative modes of transportation, access to low carbon modes of transportation, EV charging and public transit were themes that came out in that conversation. Ongoing engagement and education around climate action was a priority. Things like promoting energy conservation, renewable energy, energy resilience, and there was a pronounced concern around water resources, which makes sense given where we are. This was something that came up multiple times throughout the workshop as a concern of different residents. And this is the sort of the final where we've been slide. This is just to give you a sense of where we are in the planning process. We started this work back in April 2024. I'm happy to say that we are about or just past the halfway through point, and we're looking at concluding the climate action plan by this coming April. So that is, the intent is to bring that plan forward to you all by that point in time, with another workshop to come in the spring. So that brings us to what we're here to do tonight, and what I'd love to work with you all on for this evening. The thing that I'm looking for, and what we would love to hear from the folks in this room, anyone from the public who might like to comment, is, you know, what your initial input or thoughts are on that spreadsheet of different goals, targets, and actions are before you. There's a lot of information there. The intent, I think, is to try and go through categorically and just kind of open the floor to any comments that you all may have, just based on any initial review you've done. But there's a few key considerations I want to offer. So first is that this is just a first pass. You know, it has been vetted by some city staff, but this is not by any means set and final. There will be multiple opportunities from this group and the public to weigh in on what's in the plan. But we want to make sure that we give you all, as the policymakers and decision makers, the opportunity to weigh and to assess your appetite and the feasibility around different goals and commitments in this plan. The different categories of actions are just there on the right, so we'll be covering all 4 of those tonight, at least to the extent that we can. And I want to remind folks that while there will be multiple opportunities through April to comment on this work, it's important to acknowledge that this work continues beyond the planning process, and that plans have to be adaptable, and they must continue to evolve as regulations adjust, technologies adjust, as communities adjust. So just want to speak to that. So I'm going to pause, and I'm going to perhaps open it up just to see if there are any initial questions, or otherwise we can just start to kind of go through categorically, and I'm open up the floor to any comments from the council, commission, and other staff.
Councilmember Fuller?
My biggest question in reading through it is excellent plan. I see that it's proactive, it's moving, it's great, but there's a dramatic change in Washington in a different direction, and I'm looking at this, and without any sort of federal aid or state aid, I don't see how we're going to be able to see the plan come about. So I'm all for the plan, but financing it may be another thing that I'm worried about.
Yeah, it's a fair concern, and just to quickly address that for a moment, yeah, that news, especially in the past 48 hours, I think has shaken a lot of us as far as what the opportunities might be for funding. Part of this work is to see where the other routes will be for support for this work, but it's a valid concern. It's not the first time that's come up, so thank you.
Any other initial comments from the council or the commission? I think it's good to go.
Okay. Well, then I wanted to turn and open it up to this first section, this first category of goals, targets, and actions on governance and leadership. It might seem odd at first, why is there a governance and leadership category in a climate action plan? But we find that for many jurisdictions, this is kind of the first step, at least in a while, that they might be taking, and not all of them necessarily have sort of the structure within the city, or they don't have necessarily the designated personnel. And so part of this is figuring out, how do you mobilize your staff to do this work? So there's a number of different goals. The goals are essentially kind of qualitative aspirations. The targets themselves, they are meant to be quantitative or time-bound. You're going to do this work by this time. And then the actions are the specific steps, just to sort of clarify what that terminology is as you're looking through. I don't want to spend the time to go through one by one because we do not have the time to do that today, but I do just want to start with this category and see if anyone has taken the chance to review, if there are any comments, whether it be on specific language, specific goals, or if there's just overarching comments that you also want to make about this category.
Councilmember Williams?
You have the FTE on here. Are we proposing new headcount, or are we trying to figure out how to fit it into current scope of work?
think the intent is not necessarily to propose new headcount. Now that is at your discretion, but the intent is to give you a sense, if it's not an additional cost, maybe it's an action that simply requires devoted time from staff. So we were just trying to give estimates about what does that mean. Does that mean one person? Does that mean part of a person's time? That's just meant to give a sense of the resource.
Okay, thanks. I think that's it for right now.
Councilmember Meadows.
To me, every FTE is a cost. It's not free, it's a cost.
Sure. Yeah, it's more just differentiating between, are you procuring a specific service? Are you purchasing a product? Are you paying for something that is not necessarily an existing staff person? But you're right, it is a cost. We just wanted to create that differentiation around personnel versus a service or a product or an action.
All right. I do think that with the bottom one here, which is modifying and securing the funding, kind of speaks to what Councilmember Fuller was saying. That's something that we're going to have to figure out as far as under governance and leadership.
Thank you.
Councilmember Williams?
Sorry, kind of on that note too, is there a way to build this in? I know just from doing advocacy trips back to Washington before, when we had a different climate as well, one of the things we did was we didn't make it necessarily about climate action plan or equity, social justice, none of that stuff. And we built it into, you know, job production, infrastructure. Like, is there a way to sort of reformulate some of these things? I mean, say what you want about climate change, right? There's people who believe it, there's people who don't, but we have to keep repaving the streets because it's really hot in Oakley, and maybe if we had more shade trees, then it wouldn't necessarily have to have that. That's obviously a very simplified, but I'm just saying, is there a way to build stuff into here so that we sort of future-proof it for, depending on what the flavor is, so that this isn't necessarily only tied to climate, carbon emissions, but more to job creation, infrastructure, reducing use of public work time, things like that, so that there's, I just know that that's worked successfully in the past to get some additional funds, so I feel like we should build that into this plan just based on what we're facing right now in Washington.
Yeah, thank you. That's noted. That's a terrific piece of feedback.
Councilmember Fuller?
When I raised the issue, that's the thought. And when I read it, is there's a lot of action and money. The only thing that I might suggest is we see what the plan is here, and then hopefully by February or March, we'll have a better feel for where we're going in terms of financially. And it's not only federal, but it's state that we need to look at, because we're encumbered by both in terms of regulations and where we need to go. And then give us feedback of your own expertise of what it would be, because it's kind of hard to guess right now.
Right.
Or I don't want to say guess, professionally, let's say estimate.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. I should note too that, you know, part of the evaluation that we want to put before you is, you know, I mentioned appetite, and there are versions of climate action plans that say, here are the menu of things that we would like to do, but they might not necessarily go far as to say we are about to commit this specific resource or this specific amount of time, or we are not necessarily ready to identify the specific steps because there are these uncertainties. So there's a version of this plan that could be framed in that way. But there's also, you know, a version that ideally we would like, which is, what do we know that we can do? And I think to your point, there's more time left here to sort of suss that out. So appreciate the comment.
Anyone else before we move on? All right.
Okay. Thank you for that. With that, we'll move on to buildings and energy. This particular category speaks for itself. We are looking specifically at how do we slash emissions from the building sector. Granted, one of the things that we observed, as I mentioned, is that there aren't necessarily a whole lot of emissions coming from buildings because electricity, much of it is already decarbonized through the CCA, or it will be wiped out by 2045. But there are these residual segments coming from natural gas and other uses that we're trying to address. And so there's a number of different targets in here that are focused around municipal buildings, residential and commercial buildings, as well as renewable energy that we've accounted for. So I would welcome any comments or thoughts on this category of actions.
I just had one, and the bottom one was creating incentive and rebates. So that would be us providing that to residents.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a few actions in here that focus on partnerships, and so it wouldn't necessarily need to be you exclusively, but there's the Bay Area Renewable Energy Network. We bring them up a couple of times as a partner. They provide funding, resource, staff.
So I'm thinking more instead of creates to where it feels like it's just us, it's maybe educate the public on incentives and
Yeah.
things that
Yeah,
we can.
we can certainly incorporate that language, yeah. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
I do know that I've seen a bunch of grant programs and stuff that are available here too, that the city would have to apply on behalf. So maybe there is a way to rework it to sort of incorporate both of those. But I think we can pick up many grants by showing, hey, here's our plan, here's what we've got, and then we can help the residents that way too.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, seeing no one else. I'm sorry, Commissioner Ramirez.
Good evening. Everyone can hear me. So this is touching on building and energy and governance and leadership. I was wondering if you could speak to Councilmember Williams kind of brought this thought up kind of in her speaking around partnerships, but I know East Bay Parks is considering building on the Delta and has done some research and reports around water, when water will start to touch the Vintage neighborhood and start to touch that park. But I'm wondering, kind of in your approach with governance, leadership, buildings, are we partnering with such organizations as East Bay Parks, Los Medanos College, thinking about upskilling firefighters, or local high school, Liberty Union High School District, school districts, just to kind of bring in more agencies in pursuit of those funding?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are on the table, right? I think we identify some specific partnerships off the top to sort of stimulate some ideas, but I think, there are, like, to your point, various other organizations and groups that are advocates or they're doing this work. So I think the answer is yes. I think there's work we can do to incorporate more of those different groups into this plan.
It's just the final thought here, thinking about buildings. A number of my students, I'm a local teacher, desire to go into construction. A number of my students desire to go into firefighting. And so what does partnering with these local agencies look like in upskilling those students for success with what we'll need?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you very much.
Councilmember Meadows.
Looking at B1.2.
Yep.
And then inside there's a require energy performance ratings and disclosures for buildings at the time of sale or rental. That's a point of sale item, and I don't favor point of sale.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you would be opposed to that action or that language?
What's that?
So you would be opposed to that particular action or that language?
Correct.
Yeah? Okay. Oh, noted. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
I just wanted to know why you were opposed to that sort of language.
If it's good enough to be done at point of sale, it should be across the board. Everybody should do it. Otherwise, you don't do it at point of sale.
Okay, noted. Thank you.
All right, I guess we will move to the next one.
Sounds good. Okay. All right. Our second to last category is transportation and land use. We mentioned earlier that transportation makes up the lion's share of emissions in Oakley. For city assets, we're talking about roughly 86% or so of emissions, and then community-wide about 82%, so it is significant. Just as a quick note, we sort of group these topics of transportation and land use together because they are just inevitably intertwined. We can't really talk about them separately, so you'll see kind of a mix of actions as a result. So I'll open the floor.
I think they're scrolling, so give us.
Oh yeah, please take your time. Yeah.
I do have a question. I have a question.
Oh yes,
So,
Commissioner Creek.
Do any of these? I'm looking for the words where the bike share, the programs that were very popular for a while, where the scooters were all over town and so on. Is that what you're referring to?
There's components of that. So, one of the things that we do think about is, is there continued opportunities to create space for whether it's, ride share or whether it's these other alternative mobility modes. I think we are talking about that. We're not being super specific about the types, but we do include those as examples. Yes?
I might be misremembering, and city staff will probably remember. It seems to me like there was an ordinance passed that does not allow that in the city of Oakley, or they were considering it at some time. I'm not sure if that's.
No, you're correct. Yeah, we have an ordinance on the books prohibiting. Yep.
So what I'm saying is that has to be considered when you talk about bike share and
Sure.
those kinds of programs.
So just to clarify, is that that ordinance prohibits any bike share, scooter share programs from external parties? I just want to understand, so we note that.
Yeah, we'll through Ken we'll be able to provide you that ordinance, but it was intended to prohibit the ride share scooters like the Lime scooters, the motorized scooters. Yep.
Got it. Good to know. Thank you. Thanks for your comment.
Councilmember Williams?
I mean, we all knew this was going to be the item I was going to be most excited about. The fact of the matter is that the communities keep growing. Freeways can only get so big. We've really got to get ahead and figure out how we're going to move people from place to place. So I'm wondering if we can reconsider that ordinance at some point, just so that we can figure out how we can really meet accessibility options for everybody, right? There's a lot of folks in Oakley who don't have the luxury of a car or who don't want to sit in their car for 3.5 hours to commute. So I do invest in at least 3 programs or initiatives that encourage community-wide use of public transit. Just speaking, it does say partner with local institutions, business, school districts. I really think if we started to talk to the school district about bringing back the bus system, that would make a big difference, not only for obviously the people that are driving, but all of our schools are clogged up at drop-off pickup time. So, that's one of the things that's missing. So that invest in at least 3 programs or initiatives, that's one that I definitely do not want to see get dropped off for any reason, because we really need to get ahead of this. I know people just say stop growing, but that's not really an option. We don't have any birth limits, although the birth limit is declining in the U.S., so I guess we're good there, but we still have people here.
Councilmember Meadows?
Councilmember Williams, I agree with you on the buses, not necessarily the schools. It could be Tri-Delta, but I've said it for many years that we should have school busing, and it helps with climate action plan stuff, but it also does take the traffic off the schools, just reducing traffic, which helps with this, and it helps with our VMT. So I think there's a lot of wins there. I'm not really seeing it per se in here. I mean, I see partnering with the school district, but for electrified buses, but not really pushing school busing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in T2.2, electrify Oakley's light-duty municipal vehicles by 2035 and medium to heavy-duty vehicles by 2040. I'm gonna say if that's where we're going, I'm not for it. I don't think electrification is going to be the answer for vehicles, especially heavy-duty. But we have to have a reliable source of fuel for those vehicles in emergency situations. So, if we don't have electricity and we need public works need us to do work, we've got issues.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like LA. So, I'm not really for that.
Yeah, appreciate the comment. Thank
Or
you.
revised or looked at in the future
Mm-hmm.
when better technology comes along.
Thank you.
I'm stopping in real quick before you.
Yes.
I think with reducing some traffic, being transportation is 80% of the emissions, but our trail systems, if they were connected better, I think a lot more people would use them. And I think that would be a great thing to try to look at. I mean, if we're putting things on here that we don't know how we're going to fund it, we might as well put things on here that we want. All right, Councilmember Williams.
I just wanted to agree with Councilmember Meadows, too many M's in there. I would just like to see the language changed from electrify, because if that's not the technology, I feel like we don't want to lock ourselves in, right? Like, I don't know that I just know from the bus segment that having all electric buses by 2040 is a really unrealistic goal.
Yeah.
So I would just like us to just change the wording on that a little bit to say whatever the most current option is. Because we obviously do need to kind of move off that fossil fuel model, but we need to figure out a way to be open-ended with it.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
Chair Chuko.
You remember my name, that's great. No, I just want to say maybe perhaps right language would be something like clean vehicles, clean energy vehicles. Because, I mean, to what Councilmember Meadows was just talking about, as well as Councilmember Williams, fuel cells, is one of those emergent technologies which hopefully within maybe 15, 20 years, that would be something that we can really make a huge difference, right? And revolutionize and achieve those goals sooner. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Yes. Y'all can hear me? Cool. I'm used to those. I really just want to appreciate and affirm T-1.1, implement mobility projects and street level enhancements that encourage safe, active transportation through complete streets planning. For example, here, seating, shade. Councilmember Williams, right? Shade. We love shade because it's going to be so hot. ADA ramps, traffic signal, safety improvements, protected bike lanes, and paths, bike racks. I wonder if we can put connected trails in that language there. And I also wonder, so I ride my bike to work here and there when it's not so cold. And, I know everyone here cares about Oakley and kind of our safety, but our streets can be much safer for. And so I think prioritizing, making sure our streets have protected bike lanes over such programs as, what's the other item that we've discussed? Bike and the bike share programs. I prioritize that in this sequence.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so just kind of going a little bit back towards building and energy.
Yeah.
I do believe I saw it in one of those action items to have community solar and power storage, right? Is there anything at all in the plan about entertaining idea of actually generating our own electricity here in Oakley, being our own provider? I know a lot of communities are doing this right now to be more energy, not only just energy independent, but if, God forbid, you have like bad situation, right? You still have that power that is stored for those specific reasons, that can actually power your whole community for quite extensive time.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think, the terminology that's missing, something to the effect of microgrids, or, being a little bit more explicit about some of the different things you can do to enhance. Because one of the things that we are thinking about is, yes, the utility is or I should say the CCA is offering a decarbonized option, but there's this resilience component that's come up multiple times. And so I think we can add more language about that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. If we're satisfied, we can move on. Okay.
Okay. All right, making good time. We approach our last category, which is about adaptation and resilience. So you'll notice that there's a mix of different actions in here. I think this is one of those that's probably going to be up to a lot of different interpretation and comments, so I'd be curious to hear. But namely, what I think we're going for here is about improving existing resources, networks, to protect folks from the impacts of climate change. But there's also work that we've accounted for in here that would be interesting to include, especially around continued analysis, updating some of the planning and infrastructure guidelines to address the projected impacts of climate change. Again, additional resources, additional guidance, additional education, those are parts of this language as well. So from there, I'll open it up to questions or comments.
Councilmember Williams.
You don't have to sound like you're groaning. I'm wondering if there's a place in here where we can talk about some of our preservation for the Delta, right? I'm very concerned that we are very rapidly losing the battle for Delta tunnels. And there's a really big impact that happens, right? The fish all die off, the ecosystem dies, we're no longer a Delta community. So there's real impacts that are there, and I don't know what protections we can build in for our community in order to sort of be a pushback, right? I mean, I think the writing's kind of on the wall. They're kind of inevitable that they're coming, but what can we do as a community to protect ourselves? Is there any like special habitats we can work in so that we can kind of try and protect ourselves as much as possible? Anybody who wants to stick around, I will give my report on the Delta Protection Commission later, but we had a conversation from a UC Davis scientist, and when the fish die off, that the Delta dies, and the tunnels are responsible. Where there's pumping happening, the fish are all dying and they're becoming infertile. So I just have a lot of concerns around that, especially because we have a ton of, don't even take the climate action part of it, right? We have a ton of people who their whole thing is fishing, and we're doing bass tournaments, so that's a huge economic development piece that we will lose. So I'm just wondering if there's something that we can build in that gives us some protective habitats or something so that we can sort of insulate ourselves as much as possible, or at least have a legal recourse should something happen.
Mm. Yeah, these are all terrific comments. Thank you. Yeah, I've noted that. So making more reference to the Delta and thinking about different strategies around protecting those resources and those habitats. Okay, thank you.
I actually had a question for Councilmember Williams. So we currently have zero protection for the Delta? Like there's nothing in place that currently exists?
I mean, technically there's agencies that are supposed to protect it, but we're swiftly losing
There's
control
no
over those.
ordinances, there's nothing that is legal, right?
No. I mean, it's being challenged in court, but it's,
Gotcha.
I mean, the president just sent a directive to the director of Interior to get water to LA. So there's all kinds of goals to do that, no matter what the cost is. And so it's being legally challenged, but nothing's being upheld right now. So I don't know if that's a shot in the dark anyway, because if all that stuff is not being legally upheld, then maybe there's nothing we can put in. But I at least want to know that I tried to fight for that, because it's a vital resource for here. So
Thank you.
Councilmember Fuller?
Yes, just to clarify, when you say there's no protection for the Delta, I'm not quite sure, but there's millions going into different aspects of the Delta, ongoing dredging, upriver. There's storage of water. Who's entitled to it? So I don't know quite where you're saying there's no protection for the Delta, because when I was on the Delta Protection Commission for the state, there's a lot of money being spent for various aspects of ensuring the ongoing prosperous aspect of the Delta, including recreational use, commercial use, all the way out to Stockton and others. So I'm not quite sure how we got off to that, but the state does work on it very much.
except for they want to install tunnels, which are going to kill the Delta. They want to install the tunnels, which will kill the Delta.
Well, the tunnel is a problem, but is a resource killer. But it isn't. They aren't sending it off without an EPA report, and there is a tremendous amount of it. But and it will drain the Delta in many ways. But I'm not exactly sure if it's going to destroy the Delta at this point.
I think you should probably just watch some of the meetings.
Okay. We're gonna move on to, I actually have a comment, and that is, while we are not a high fire area according to the Contra Costa Fire Department, I think those that are go through Firewise. And I think that that would be a great thing, that we can involve our neighbors and our community into the things that they can do through their homes to protect themselves against fire, or if there were to be, just plants that they could do, or, whatever it is. I think that would be a good one to put in here. So we're working with the community as well. So,
Yeah, terrific. Noted. Thank you.
all right. Commissioner Ramirez.
So I have a few points here I'd like to raise. I appreciate the community-based organization component, because I find in my neighborhood, a lot of the elders in my neighborhood really don't have the finances or like the time to, or just the strength to take down dead trees. And so I think partnering and having infrastructure for our elders, right? If folks come to our senior center and can see that, work can be done to clear spaces of potential fired tinder. The other piece I also share concerns around, similar to Councilmember Williams, around what's happening in the Delta, the construction of tunnels out of Hood, California, which is proximate to us. But the other component I want to raise here is potential exploration of, in areas near the Delta, prescribed burns. So we're on Miwok land. Indigenous people have cultivated this land and cared for this land before Oakley ever existed. And so what does they're starting to do this in San Jose with some educational organizations. And then I appreciate the inclusion of native and drought tolerant plants. Right, in Antioch, there's a primrose that's starting to come back. It's a very beautiful pink flower that I've talked about with some with some folks here. But this primrose is starting to reemerge in at Big Break. And so what does it look like to have prescribed burns here as a mitigation measure?
I appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Councilmember Fuller.
Just as a quick part of information from Supervisor Diane Burgess, is a good place to look for information on the Delta. She served as president of the Delta Protection Commission, Delta Stewardship Commission. She is very much dedicated to the Delta. I believe she keeps 3 staff full-time working on the Delta. So if you're looking for information, that's one place, one source that at least they would be able to steer you out to other areas. They may be able to find things. And for anybody else, the Delta is fascinating. I don't understand it. I was there when Eric was, I'm sorry, I can't, not the last name, was the director. And one thing I learned, he had spent years, decades working on it. And myself, I probably could have spent 20 years and still not fully understand the Delta, but it is a big resource for this area. So, thank you.
Councilmember Meadows.
Councilmember Williams, aren't you on the Delta Protection Commission?
I am, yeah, and my information's coming from working with Diane and her staff.
I thought. Thank you.
All right. Any other input on this section here? All right.
Can I ask a quick question? Councilmember Williams, like what does legal recourse look like in protecting?
I don't know. There's a lot of challenges that are happening right now, but they're all being overturned. So that's why I'm saying I don't know that there's anything that we can do, but I'll use a real world example for anybody who comes to our council meetings. We have Restore the Delta folks who come. Our salmon are being poached. It's all along Marsh Creek. So I don't know how much of that we can put into here, so that way we've got some built-in protections. If if Marsh Creek is declared a habitat, I don't know if that helps us in any way, because it's all downriver and downstream that the pumping will happen, but at least it's something to ensure that Oakley's got something. So again, there's lots of legal challenges, and I'm not enough equipped to know what we could do, but there's real world impacts here in Oakley. So if we could build some of that stuff in, I would just like to see what kind of buffers we can create.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
All right. And anything else? Do you have any other?
There are no other sections to go through. I can just conclude with some really quick remarks. Really quick remarks and conclude my time. I was just going to say that we invite you to sit with this list and to provide additional written comments. There is time for that before we issue and circulate an internal draft of this plan sometime next month. So, I know this was sort of the first glance, and we gave you a lot, so please feel free to give us more. But this was exactly what I think we had hoped to achieve tonight. So thank you so much for your time and your comments. We'll take them under advisement and hope to come back with some updates.
Thank you so much. And at this time, I am going to open it up to public comments. I do have one public speaker card. Just as a reminder, public comments, you have 3 minutes to speak. The timer is located in front of my seat, and I'm going to call on Mike Moore.
Good evening, members of the City Council and Planning Commission. My name is Mike Moore. I am here to present my findings on the Oakley Climate Action Plan. Within the city boundaries of Oakley, there are 96 gas wells, of which 95 are capped and abandoned and 1 idle. The potential exposure to rising sea levels could lead to methane leakage and other hazardous conditions. The former DuPont chemical plant that operated just east of the Antioch Bridge was closed in 1998. The site underwent 20 years of extensive cleanup before the Contra Costa Logistics Center was permitted. DTSC currently maintains a post-closure permit that runs from 2022 to 2032 on the discharge ponds. Furthermore, 2 land use covenants restricting human use were filed in 2019 and 2021. The city of Oakley is bounded on its northern and eastern sides by levees. The associated risks and mitigation actions have been documented in the local hazard mitigation plan approved by Oakley in 2024. My levee research led me to the East Cypress Corridor Specific Plan. The specific plan includes provisions for 11 gas well sites within the planned community. These provisions were insisted upon by the owner of the mineral rights, Transamerica Minerals Company. Although the company was dissolved in 2012, the latest Oakley CEQA update from June of 2024 still provides for 28 acres of gas wells. I would like to draw attention to recent legislative changes which will impact the specific plan. SB 1137 introduced a 3,200-foot setback requirement in June of 2024 for oil and gas wells. The specific plan and the Oakley Municipal Code only requires a 150-foot setback. Another new law, AB 3233, signed last September, allows cities to ban oil and gas drilling. Although the City Council failed to pass a ban in September of 2022, the city now has authorization of the state if it so chooses. In legal matters, the Sunflower Alliance versus Revolt is a pending case before the California Supreme Court that would allow the defendants to reopen a capped gas well site without CEQA review. While there's been no natural gas extraction within the city limits of Oakley since 2015, a favorable ruling for the defendants is a cause for concern just in case a fossil fuel company may take advantage of the 11 authorized gas well sites within the planned area. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so this is just a discussion item, nothing to vote on, but I want to give the opportunity for the council and the commission if there's any additional direction that they want to provide or other comments before we close it out. Oh. All right, Marilyn Tiernan.
Hi. I just wanted to add to the information on the Delta. DWD, Diablo Water District, we have joined a lawsuit on that, and you are certainly welcome to get all the information we have to date. And we're very active in that. I had a meeting this morning on it. I don't think we anticipate the tunnels going in, to be honest with you, because I don't think there's enough water and groundwater up here, and I think we can make that argument. Just an FYI.
All right. Any, Commissioner Ramirez, you look like you want to say something.
Yep. I really appreciate the comments on gas wells. If anyone follows Dr. Christina Hill's research out of the College of Environmental Design at UC Berkeley, she's doing extensive research on how the water rising near Oakland, right where the airport is, that water rising will bring up all the lead that was in the paint into the ground, up from the soil. And so I have my homework to do to go research these bills, but I think considering that the water will, arrive at, I grew up in Vintage, it will arrive there within the next 100 years, considering how we can put funding towards cleaning these, right, making sure the land is not polluted in that way.
All right, anyone else before we close this item? All right, seeing none, we are going to close 4.1, and next item is 5, which is adjournment. So we have a regular scheduled council meeting here at 6:30 for those that want to stay. Otherwise, thank you for coming. Good evening. This is the regular joint meeting of the Oakley City Council. Oakley City Council acting as a successor agency to the Oakley Redevelopment Agency, and special meeting of the Oakley Public Finance Authority. Roll call. Councilmember Fuller?
Here.
Councilmember Meadows?
Here.
Councilmember Williams?
Here.
Vice Mayor Henderson?
Here.
And I am Mayor Shaw, present. We are going to move on to item 1.2, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to invite Nicholas Contreras up. And while he is on his way, I'd like to introduction. Nicholas is 11 years old. He's currently in 6th grade at O'Hara Park. Nicholas is a trumpet player in the school band and also plays an active role in leadership as well. When Nicholas is not on the field playing soccer, he is spending time with his younger brother playing video games. Nicholas is a proud member of his Oakley community and is always eager to and willing to support his peers any way he can.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we are going to move on to item 1.3, which is the Oakley Youth Advisory Council presentation. Administrative Services Director Jerry Tejeda. No? Someone else?
City Council. My name is Alicia O'Leary, and I am the staff advisor for the Oakley Youth Advisory Council. Today, we'll be presenting on what the Oakley Youth Advisory Council does and what we have been up to for the past year. Here's a brief overview of what the Oakley Youth Advisory Council, or OYAC, does. The Oakley Youth Advisory Council is a council of youth representatives that help plan and attend events in the city for youth and their families, and advise the city of Oakley on policies that pertain to our youth community. We meet on the first Wednesday of each month from August to May at the Recreation Center from 5 to 6. The Oakley Youth Advisory Council focuses on enriching experiences for youth in ways that influence them using the 40 developmental assets. These assets are values, skills, and experiences that youth need to develop and grow to be caring, responsible members of the community.
On the screen, you will find a list of all our current OYAC members and those who currently hold positions. Our members are students ranging from 6th to 12th grade and reside in the city of Oakley. To become a member of OYAC, interested participants are encouraged to fill out an application, turn it into our advisor, and an interview with the council is then scheduled for the next upcoming meeting.
Since 2017, the Oakley Youth Advisory Council has hosted a community talent show where participants of all ages are welcome to showcase their skills. OYAC invites local judges consisting of City of Oakley Council members, school principals, and teachers of Oakley schools to award participants at the end of the show for each talent category. In 2024, we held the event on March 9th and had a show that consisted of 13 local acts, ranging in performances of singing, dancing, and a flute showcase. Each year, OYAC looks to host a cleanup day at an Oakley park. Last year, in partnership with the Friends of Marsh Creek and the Contra Costa Resource Conservation District, we hosted a cleanup on September 7th, 2024 at Oakley's Creekside Park. During this event, we had 92 volunteers and collected over 200 pounds of trash and recycling during our 2-hour event.
Throughout the year, OYAC has also likes to assist at City of Oakley events such as Heart of Oakley and Oktoberfest. Last year, we hosted free Plinko giveaways and glitter tattoos at our festival booths. For Oktoberfest, we have also hosted a costume contest for 2 years in a row. One of our favorite events to participate in is the Oakley Holiday Tree Lighting, where we host a reindeer food station. 2 new events that we've had the pleasure to be a part of include Oakley's Memorial Day and Veterans Day ceremonies. In both of these events, we have brainstormed and created an OYAC-issued statement honoring these holidays and also have had the chance to have members read poems at each ceremony.
We also aim to give back to our community. In 2024, our council had a donation drive for the food bank of Contra Costa and Solano County. We had an online website where donations could be made from friends, family, and community members. We surpassed our initial goal of $250 by raising $500 throughout the month of February and ending it live at our annual Oakley's Got Talent show. On our final slide, we have a list of our spring 2025 upcoming events. February 5th, meeting. February 5th, Oakley's Got Talent auditions. February 6th, Oakley's Got Talent auditions.
February 27th, Oakley's Got Talent dress rehearsal. March 1st, Oakley's Got Talent. March 5th, a meeting. April 1st, Science Week, OYAC Day.
April 2nd, meeting. April 12th, day of service. May 7th, meeting. May 24th, Memorial Day ceremony. Thank you for joining us today and letting us present our council. If you have any questions, now would be the time.
Do we have any questions or comments from the council? Councilmember Williams?
I love everything you guys do. I love supporting you at all the events, but are you finding that more youth are wanting to become involved, or is it kind of stagnant?
That's a great question. So we did have a decline in our members who were interested or potential members. However, I am happy to say that we did hit our 21 member maximum this past year.
Great, perfect.
I'm so excited to see you guys have here for the day of service. I want to congratulate you on the Oakley's Got Talent. I was a judge last year, and it was one of the hardest things I've done elected. So I think it's great what you guys do, and I just want to say we really appreciate it. And I believe they would like to have a picture with the council.
Yes, please.
All right, we are going to move on to item 2, which is public comment. At this time, public comment will be heard for items not on the agenda. I do not have any public speaker cards submitted at this time. If you'd like to submit a card, please complete a blue speaker card located in the lobby and submit it to the city clerk. The time limit to speak is 3 minutes. The time limit is monitored by the timer located in front of the mayor's seat. When 1 minute remains on the timer, it will beep once as a reminder to complete your comments before your time expires. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, or other outbursts so that everyone may have an opportunity to be heard. Note that due to provisions of state law, the council may not engage in dialogue regarding comments. Staff may be directed to respond to persons making public comments. I do not have any cards at this time, so we will close public comment and move on to item 3, which is council member comments. And as a reminder, council members will also have 3 minutes to speak, regulated by the timer. Any council members wish to make comment? All right, we are moving right along. We are going to go into item 4, which is our consent calendar. I do have a public speaker card on item 4.5. Are there any additional items that would like to be pulled?
4.1.
I'll move the remainder.
Second.
All right, I have a first and a second for the remainder minus 4.1 and 4.5. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, passes unanimously. Councilmember Fuller, item 4.1.
Same objection I've had. The minutes are too brief to be as accurate as I would hope. I'll vote no.
I move approval of 4.1.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1 with Councilmember Fuller as a no vote. And then item 4.5, I have Cindy Kaufman. So this is adopt a resolution authorizing the county-wide bicycle advisory committee for the purpose of reviewing and prioritizing Transportation Development Act Article 3 grant application. Is Cindy here? Oh.
Apologies for my handwriting. It's Grady Kaufman. Yeah.
I apologize for misreading it.
No problem. A lot of people get my name wrong. But I want to touch on how bicycles will be able to be integrated into the community, because from when I was driving for the first time, I noticed a lot of bicycle lanes in our roads, along with not a lot of events or clubs for people that have bicycles, so that not a lot of people can actually use them or be with people that are interested in vehicles. Along with that, I also think, I don't know if this is in your power to do this, but I also think that encouraging people to set up bicycle shops or something of the like will be a huge boon to our community. So I just think more community outreach in the bicycle community, along with encouraging people to get bicycles, will not only bring our community together, but also help reduce climate change and all the other good stuff about biking. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Williams, you have a comment on this item?
Yes, I was going to pull this. I think that we should put this out instead of just using the county representative. I believe the seat's going to be open, and I just want to make sure that Oakley has a voice here. So is it an option? It looked like it was an option for us to have our own seat on this. So is that an option? Can we put it out to the community to have an advisory member to this?
So there are 5 seats. It's I believe off the top of my head, it's a 13-member committee in the county. 5 seats are appointed by the Board of Supervisors. I believe there are 2 vacancies, one being in District 3, which we fall in. I was able to go online, and I checked today. You can apply for that, but what I would like to do is reach out to county staff, specifically in District 3, and ask them if they're actively engaged in promoting that, because then we could then share that information in our community to see if we can get someone to apply to be on that seat. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So will approving this item, though, I know that work's going to happen, but will approving this item sort of take us out of the option for that?
Approving this item would set the countywide bicycle advisory committee as the committee per the MTC requirement.
Okay.
If the city wants to discuss adopting our own, that would be a different discussion.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted some clarity around that because I would like an Oakley resident to be able to apply for that.
So having our own, that would obviously be a cost to us, staff time, all of that. So this allows us to be a part of the program, potentially having a seat if we can get someone appointed through the county's appointment. But this does get us moving forward with being able to get this work done that was in 4.4.
Correct. It meets the requirements of MTC for the item that was approved in 4.4. Yep.
Great, thank you.
I move approval of 4.5.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And with that, we are going to move on to item 5.1, which is a zoning text amendment for car wash highway buffers.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. Ken Strelo, Community Development Director. Do you have a PowerPoint to assist with the presentation here? And the item before you tonight is a rezoning application for a text amendment. Item number is project number RZ0224, and the City Council has seen this before. We'll go over that quickly here. All right. So this was born out of a city-initiated request for approval of a rezone, and it had text amendments. If the council may remember, last year we brought the ordinance forward, and it included two portions or two parts of the existing zoning code. One was for wineries, tasting rooms, and processing of agricultural products, and the other portion was the one before you tonight. The council moved forward that night and ended up ultimately adopting an ordinance for the wineries, tasting rooms, and processing of agricultural products. However, they did not adopt this portion here. And what is being requested is for an addition to the existing car wash ordinance that would allow for car washes to be within 1,000 feet of each other if they are within 1,000 feet of a highway off-ramp or on-ramp. And here's a little bit of corrections. I made a mistake in the staff report, so I replaced the letter C with B on accident. So this slide is just to make these clerical corrections in the public forum. So currently, the City of Oakley has an ordinance that helps operational standards and standard procedures for car washes. And as part of that ordinance, there is a language in there to help prevent saturation of car washes in certain areas of the city. One of those is that if a car wash is within 1,000 feet of another car wash, the second car wash may not be able to be proposed in front of, to be constructed or existing in the city. And the text on the left there is taken directly out of the municipal code, and that is the language and how it's stated. There's a current ordinance for gas stations in a similar area of the municipal code that has a similar sort of threshold, but it's 500 feet instead of 1,000 feet. And the 500 feet is basically they're exempt from that if it's within 1,000 feet of a highway on-ramp or off-ramp. So last year in May, this project, along with the other one that I mentioned at the beginning, the other portion of the code, went to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did recommend the City Council adopt both ordinances. No public comments were received at that time. And then on July 9th, the City Council had held their meeting where they adopted or introduced an ordinance for the winery section that ultimately was adopted as ordinance number 10-24. On August 13th, 2024, Councilmember Meadows, supported by Councilmember Henderson, asked staff to bring the car wash portion of this ordinance back to council for additional consideration, and that is what we're doing tonight. The section here is taken directly out of the municipal code. Everything you see that is not underlined currently exists in the code, and the proposal in front of you tonight is to add the underlined text, which states an exception to the 1,000-foot buffer may be considered if a car wash is located within 1,000 feet of a highway on/off ramp, subject to the approval of the applicable decision-making body. Just to let you know, this sort of application would require a conditional use permit, which would go to the Planning Commission for consideration and final approval unless appealed to the council. Staff has looked at the city. Of course, there's 3 places, I guess, that are within on-ramp or off-ramps, and that's Wilbur, Main Street, and Laurel. The most likely scenario where this could happen is at Main Street, Bridgehead, and Neroli Road. There is some land near Laurel. However, the closest on-ramp is located in the city of Antioch, and the 1,000-foot maybe touches the church property barely. But the next property from the church property that is commercial is approximately 1,000 feet as well. So I'm not really sure how this would apply to that area of town. So it's staff's belief that the only place we would really see an impact from this ordinance allowing this to where car washes could really be closer than 1,000 feet is at Bridgehead, Neroli, and Main. And this is an area which is mainly commercially developed, very close to the freeway. And from staff's perspective, if there were to be a place where multiple car washes or other means of economic development for otherwise vacant commercial properties were to exist, this would probably be the area. And that's really why we're even considering this in lieu of what's currently adopted, is these areas are areas that for years have struggled to develop, and there has been interest in some of these properties, and we know the types of interest that comes forth. So if there's anything that can be done to help spur development of the city in an area where some development is much needed, we feel like this could be one thing to assist and hopefully bring about other commercial uses as well. With that, that concludes my presentation. Sorry, I'll go through this. It is categorically exempt from CEQA. But otherwise, that concludes staff's presentation, and staff does recommend that the City Council introduce the ordinance as proposed, and it would come back to you at probably the next council meeting for adoption if you were to do that. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
All right, do we have any questions for staff? No? Oh, your button's not working. Sorry, there it is. Councilmember Williams?
No, my button is still sticky. Do we have any, and obviously it wouldn't be us, but I'm assuming if somebody would like this, they would have some sort of data, statistical data about how many people are pulling off the freeway just to get a car wash at a standalone car wash place? Do we have any studies or anything that shows people's behavior? No. Okay.
No, we have nothing like that.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so as far as the location off of Laurel, right now there's a church there, but with this, the church decided to go away, put a car wash right there, right? Is there any way that this, Laurel being more residential than this area being more commercial, is there any way to word it with that 1,000 feet and something to do with residential so we're not getting stuck with having it in 2 locations? Just trying to figure that out.
Possibly. I will say that I just want to clarify how the ordinance is worded and what it would allow. If this ordinance tonight were to not be adopted, a car wash could probably propose to be at that location anyways. So I'm not sure it's within 1,000 feet of another car wash.
Right, I just meant like, so I misspoke. Multiple car washes could go there.
At the church location? Yeah. So with this, it's close. It's very close. We did rough measurements from the on-ramp to that parcel, and I mean, it's like just rough measurements. It's right there. It's
I'm just trying to find a way to figure out the protection for the future. And I get the one locate, anyways, I'll get into that in deliberation, but any other questions?
And
All right, so I am going to open the public hearing, and I do not have any speaker cards at this time. If there's any members of the public that wish to speak on this. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council for deliberation. Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Oh, Councilmember Williams, sorry, she called me
Sorry,
first.
Williams is
Yeah.
first.
I'm sorry, I missed this. You called my name and...
No, I said Councilmember Williams. Her name is lit up first. I think you just misheard me.
I obviously was very passionate about bringing this zoning thing. Anybody who remembers the elections of 2020, we were definitely getting a lot of pushback from residents regarding fast food storage units, car wash, all of that stuff. So to me, it was very important to build this in. And personally, I feel like if we're diluting what the residents asked for, even if it's just at this one corner, it's not really true to what I was voted in for. And I just don't, I mean, I'm somebody who drives the freeway a lot, and there's never, ever been one time in my entire life when I've said, I'm going to pull off the freeway to go get a car wash. Sure, I may do it if I'm getting gas. So if this was a gas station with a car wash, potentially I could see that argument, but I'm not pulling off the freeway on my way someplace to go get a car wash. And we only have so much commercial, and I am very sorry that the developer's having a hard time with it, but everything's being developed. I mean, we have to just be patient. You can't take away the car wash once it's there. And I really feel we can't just dilute different sections of this on a piecemeal basis because somebody comes to us with an economic development option. I just feel like we're diluting what the residents asked for. So I don't think that there's much outside of a report that says, you know, the behavior of people is to get off the freeway to go get a car wash. I don't see the justification for this.
Councilmember Fuller.
Yes, my concern on this is, well, it came out in the staff report, economic development. We're talking about economic development here, and I can say very clearly that the people in Oakley do not favor car washes for economic development, period. That's just whatever we may think, but here we are talking about car washes again. The ordinance, as it is, serves our community. If there is something where a car wash was 900, somebody wants to build a car wash and it's 950 feet, I believe Ms. Elizabeth can confirm it, but they can ask for a zoning variance. They can come back to the commission and they can come back to the council and ask for a zoning variance so they can be 950 feet instead of 1,000. But I like the idea of just keeping the way it is, and I don't know how to say it, but we got another car wash going up to on Sellers in East Cypress with a service station. So I don't know how the public's going to react there, but it's just leave it as it is. And if somebody really thinks it's going to bring in a lot of tax revenue and really enhance the community, they can come back here and ask for a zoning variance.
Councilmember Meadows.
So address the Laurel Church site. There's really not residential around there, and really never really will be. I mean, there's a little bit, but it's a ways away to the north. I think Maine and Neroli Bridgehead is a great place to put car washes. There is a demand. I mean, our citizens might get on social media and say they don't like it, but that's like a select few, like I mentioned before, but they'll use it. And they're going to apply, they're going to build somewhere. And if we could put the demand up there at Maine and Neroli, it doesn't affect residential. It's away from our homes. It's in our light industrial area. It's a to me, it's a perfect place to have a car wash. We're not going to get residential complaints. So I'm for it there.
Vice Mayor Henderson.
And when you look at that intersection there, I mean, we have 3 corners complete and 1 corner not. And getting that developed so when you come into the city off of 160 and see all 4 corners of that intersection clean and having businesses there for people to stop at, I think is important. And I also support it.
Well, I'm torn on this one. I see it 2 ways. I want to see all 4 corners developed down there, and businesses that think that they can succeed here are going to want to come here, and they're not going to come here if they don't think they can succeed. I also understand the zoning ordinance, the buffer zones that were put in place because we wanted to make sure the residents were hearing us. We're going to get grief about that car wash on Cypress, and that was approved a long time ago. So no matter what we do, somebody's not going to be happy. I understand that it most likely will only affect this one area, and if I could have a guarantee on that, I would feel a lot better. I was the one with the snarky comment that said people don't get off the highway, wash their cars, and get back on the highway. And I've been reading and really thinking a lot about this, and I think that if they see a value here, we need to, if we see that this would bring us value. My one question is had you gone back when this originally happened, this buffer that we did, would you have suggested the 1,000 foot for car washes the way you did for gas stations originally? Or is it just kind of come up now that this intersection is hindered?
I don't know if I can provide an honest answer to that, thinking back to then. I think things change. We come to you with ideas, or the council gives us ideas to bring back, and we do our best to create ordinance that works with the city. And then, sometimes reality kicks in, or maybe we write the perfect ordinance. It's not always perfect. So there will be times when we do bring language back and ask you to reconsider. I'll just present this idea to you, since you seem torn and it feels like we have maybe 2 not in favor and 2 in favor. Would it be worth staff going back and digging in very closely to the Laurel location, finding out the distance? If you want to exclude that, make sure that one's not included in this exemption, and maybe bring something back with a more specific buffer.
Councilmember Meadows.
Do you know what the distance is at Laurel?
It depends on where we measure, and like I said, I didn't get down to the foot, but I can tell you that a rough measurement from the on-ramp to the corner of the church property as the crow flies is like 990 to 1,010 feet. So we would really need to dig in. The same thing goes from the corner of the church property to the corner of the undeveloped property where the vineyard is. That is the second phase of the ARCO development. So that, unless a car wash were to go right on the corner of that, which again would have to come forward, and couldn't be that close to the ARCO one because it's not within a buffer. So it's probably going to be at least 1,000 feet away from the ARCO car wash, the current Super Clean. However, as the mayor brought up, if that church site were found to be within 1,000 feet, potentially it could be argued to be included in the buffer area.
If I could too, just jump in. One option too, if we're concerned about Laurel specifically, is we could just make this exception only applicable to the Neroli main bridgehead intersection, to only allow for that at that one corner, and it would preclude this exception being used anywhere else in the city. And I think that would give you kind of the definitive, it's only allowed here, that you were looking for.
I think that residents don't like gas stations, car washes, storage units, and fast food that got added. I know I ran on that, but there are places within the city that it makes sense. And so if you can take the Laurel site out of it, for me, it would be an easier swallow. You got more, Mr. Meadows? All right, Councilmember Meadows, you just never unclicked your button.
I re-clicked it.
I re-clicked mine too.
Councilmember Meadows.
Can we take that out tonight? Is that something we can do tonight?
I believe you could with a motion.
Okay, thank you.
Get my one last thing, my one last plea that I'm going to leave for everybody is, so we're making an exception here because it's just off the freeway. What's the next exception? What's the next exception? What's the next exception? Just because we get an economic development, and we all know I want businesses, I want commercial, but I also want to listen to what my residents want. So when we get that next request, we've already diluted it here. Sure, it's not the same one, right? I realize this only impacts these couple intersections. I'm just saying, when somebody brings an attractive economic development thing, but the residents have said, I mean, we could use that same logic. People will go to it. If we had a strip club here, people would go to it. But that's not the type of economic development that we and our residents have said we want, correct? So I think we can't, that's a faulty logic, and it's just my one last plea that I want to put out there as we're diluting this, that then what's the next one, what's the next one, what's the next one?
Councilmember Meadows.
Has the developer taken down the property yet? They purchased it yet?
No, it's contingent on a project being submitted and approved, and that would then trigger the agreement to be finalized.
So that site's got some limitations on it also. Size, previous uses.
Yeah, it's a constrained site. I think there's interest in the site, but from some very specific users. And I would characterize it as the users are spending real money because they believe the site is viable for those uses.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments, or I would entertain a motion?
I move approval of the zoning text amendments for car washes and highway buffers pertaining only to Main, Neroli, and Bridgehead Road.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No.
Passes 3-2. Thank you. All right, so we are going to move on to our regular calendar. Item 6.1, interview and appoint 2 applicants to the Planning Commission for 2-year terms ending February 28th, 2027. Community Development Director, come on back.
Thank you so much. Please allow me to pull this staff report up quickly. Okay, so tonight is the night that the City Council gets to interview candidates for the 2 seats in the Planning Commission that will be opening up next month. On February 28th, 2025, 2 of the 5 seats on the Planning Commission will expire. Currently, the council is trying to move forward in a manner that would create staggering terms where 2 of the seats stagger with the other 3 seats so that they're approximately 2 years apart. And staff has a plan for that. Something was brought to you late last year by the city clerk at that time, Libby Vrionis, to go over that. So we're continuing with that moving forward. And what is being asked tonight is that the council interview these candidates before you tonight And at the end of the night, hopefully you can choose 2 of them to fill those seats. And then in October, we would come back. And the seats tonight, we would ask that they be for 2-year terms, not the full 4-year terms. And then in October of this year, when the other 3 seats come up, those would be for 4-year terms. And then when these 2 seats come up in February of 2027, those would go to 4-year terms, and that would then create the 4-year stagger or approximate stagger. We have talked about whether the council will want, in October, whether they'll want to do full 4-year terms or possibly try to get everything on track for February, but that's something that we can discuss later on in October when that time comes around. So I know we have 6 folks. I have not been able to confirm if all 6 showed tonight. I apologize about that. But the 6 that are in your staff report, and a random order was chosen for these applicants, and they include Christina Pena Langley, Carrie Ann Harvey, Yared Oliveros, J. Connor Brown Ortega, Pierre Goetti, Pascal Iwa. And I believe Jerry is ready to bring in our first candidate. Thank you very much. No, I'm sorry.
We have to send them out of the room.
They're here in the audience. I am so sorry. So yeah, we will ask that all but the first candidate, Christina Pena Langley, please follow Jerry. I'm going to give them a... Hi, how are you? Oh my gosh, I totally forgot you guys are all in here.
I wasn't sure where to go.
All right, good luck.
Thank you.
They don't have the questions, so.
It's just the question I have, I'm bifurcating it into 3 different questions because it's easier to ask. I've asked that before, asked the question before, and it gets cumbersome with the commas. So, thank you.
All right, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. I am going to start off with a series of questions, and I'm going to ask a question to the rest of the council as well. And what motivated you to become a planning commissioner?
Okay, so good evening, everyone. So why I wanted to apply is I just want to give back to the community. I feel like this would be a great opportunity to get to know our residents and just be more involved with our community. I've always given back to the community. I am a Girl Scout leader. I'm a teacher. I've been involved with our Teachers Association for many years. I've been a resident here for 9 years, and I just am one of those people that I love to be involved and I like to stay busy. So just trying to get involved and learn more about Oakley and how we can help make it the best city for everyone to live.
This will be said 3 different sentences and answer accordingly. The best
Okay.
to your convenience is: where do you see Oakley in 5 years? Where do you see Oakley in 10 years? And where do you see Oakley in 15 years?
In 5 years, I hope we don't have more car washes or fast food restaurants. I'm with Anissa and George. I hear the residents, and I think everybody can agree that we don't want more of those businesses here. I understand that it builds tax revenue for the city, but at the same time, that's not why we came to Oakley. I know when I first moved out here, I chose Oakley because I saw that it was a great small town, and it's how I grew up. I grew up in a small border town in Texas, and it was like, it's the same vibe as Oakley. So I wanted that for my child. I wanted that for my neighborhood and for the city. So I hope in 5 years that we just continue to grow and just build more in the small businesses with more like mom and pop, type of restaurants, and maybe some craft stores and more things for the kids to do. In 10 years, I would really hope that we can get some of the wineries to be like a winery where people can actually sit down, have a glass of wine after work. Serendipity is a great place. I wish we could have something like that in Oakley. I think we have the potential of having that in Oakley. So I would like to see that in about 10 years. I don't think 5 years is probably doable, but maybe 10. And then in 15, ooh, that's a long time from now. I think just more of the same. I don't want Oakley to be a big city. I think a lot of the residents come to Oakley for the small town feel. And so I eventually, I think a lot of residents would also like to see that 55-acre park being built in 15 years. I live down on Cypress in Emerson Ranch, and we were spoken to that was going to be something in, the 5-10 year mark. And here I am 9 years in Oakley, and we still haven't seen that 55-acre park. So I'm hoping that is in the future with the potential grants. Oh, and that wonderful library to be built. That would be awesome also.
All right, what do you think is the single most important skill for a planning commissioner to have?
I think in the word planning. So I think like being able to plan and work as a team with the other planning commissioners would be the best asset and tool that I can help bring. I always have been known to work well with others and to listen to other people's ideas and to come up with like some kind of agreement that we can all like agree on. And so I think definitely just like planning and working together and, for everyone to be happy and definitely listening to our residents.
Christina, if you are appointed, what do you see your role being as a planning commissioner?
My role being just getting to learn more about the planning aspect of it. I know it's something new here in Oakley that we've had a planning commission, so it's not something that I'm super familiar with, but I'm a fast learner, and there's a lot of roles that I've learned and I've succeeded in, so I'm really hoping to just kind of get my feet wet and just learn from the current planning commissioners and, talk to them and see what are things that have gone well and what are things that we can improve on, and just working with them and having that relationship with them of like working together.
Good evening. Do you have any scheduling conflicts that could impact your ability to attend planning commission meetings? They're scheduled for Tuesday nights at 6:30.
No, I do not. I am very fortunate that my husband works from home now, and my daughter is now a teenager, so she's mostly independent. She is a competitive gymnast, but she does practice on Mondays and Wednesdays, and she normally has competitions on the weekends. I do meetings for Girl Scouts, but I do those after school for the girls from 4 to 5:30. So I can get a quick bite to eat, and then I can come over here.
All right, how do you see the direction the city is currently headed in terms of development and growth?
I really hope that we can see more economic development with less big like groceries or big grocery stores and like car washes and storage units and gas stations. We don't need those. I would really like to see smaller grocery stores. I think I heard that on Laurel they're doing a Chipotle, so that is okay. And I think a Starbucks as well is what the rumor is. So those are okay, and I think a lot of residents are okay with those types of businesses, but we just really don't want to see as a resident. And I know when I speak, I can speak on behalf of a lot of residents because I talk to a lot of people, and I kind of feel like what I feel is what other people feel is like we just want to see more like restaurants and different types of restaurants and not just fast food restaurants and gas stations. So I'm really hoping in the future that Oakley can continue to grow, but at a slow pace. And also our housing situation is getting a little bit too fast because our schools right now are just jam-packed with students. So we really need to consider that when we're approving new developments for residents, because it's affecting our schools, which then affects our children, which then affects our homes.
All right, well, I want to say thank you for your time, and we will let you know.
All right, thanks. Do I stay or do I leave?
You can stay.
Okay.
Watch the show. Hello. So we have a series of questions for you. I'm going to let you
I welcome them.
let us know who you are, and then we will start with the questions. So I don't mess up anyone's names. I'm going to ask you guys to say yours.
Carrie Harvey.
All right. So first question, what motivated you to become a planning commissioner?
My time spent with the Oakley Leadership Academy really helped me to understand the importance of planning and of understanding the needs of our community, and especially coming up with the changes that are coming now to CEQA. It's going to be very important to be agile to compliance changes because there's going to be a lot of them. So we want to be prepared, and I think that I can bring that to us.
Thank you.
I have a favor. Could you move the mic a little bit closer?
Sorry about that.
No, just you can pull it closer to you. There you
Is that better?
Thank you.
Sure, of course, Councilman.
This question is in 3 parts. Where do you see Oakley in 5 years? Where do you see Oakley in 10 years? And where do you see Oakley in 15 years?
That's a good question. In 5 years, I see that we're going to have a lot more success with cleanup, and we'll have established where we are with CEQA changes right now. There's going to be a lot of things that have changed, but we're going to have a lot of stability. We're definitely a continuity city, a public safety city, and we're concerned about our environment. So we're going to hold on to that, but continue to grow. We're a big growth city. In 10 years, we're going to have a lot more tax base to work with. Hopefully, we might even be able to negotiate some of that back, get some more of our tax base. You never know. And in 15 years, we're going to be, I would estimate we're going to be about 70,000 people probably, and we're going to have more needs, but I feel that we'll be able to fulfill them pretty solidly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
All right. What do you think is the single most important skill for a planning commissioner to have?
The ability to have a real overview of the situation and also to care about the community's requests and needs. Sometimes a request isn't what you really need. You have to really analyze it and look at what your outcome is. First principles thinking helps you to do that. You go, what do we need? How do we accomplish that? Without any real emotion attached to it, and then bring in the emotion of caring about our city and the other things. So, I'm sorry, did I answer that fully?
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
If you are appointed, what do you see your role being as a planning commissioner?
I'm looking for unity, continuity, accuracy, and first principles thinking again. I want to be able to have a logical and real output and a method for doing that. I think that we need to have our continuity stay, but be able to be agile because we are having some changes for compliance and funding coming. So we have to be ready for those, for CEQA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Do you have any scheduling conflicts that would impact your ability to consistently attend commissioner meetings, planning commissioner meetings, which are scheduled for Tuesdays at 6:30?
I won't have any conflicts. I'm self-directed.
All right. How do you see the direction the city is currently headed in terms of development and growth?
It has been incredible. I've been here for 11 years, and I'm out on East Cyprus, so obviously I've seen a great deal of development since that's where the majority of it seems to occur. It has been, I've found it to be very positive. I like to see people getting homes and all of the great things that are happening for us. I have a very strong concern for our evacuation route, and I would like to see that worked on. And if I can be instrumental in that, I would be honored.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Can have a seat. And
Well, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You can stay in here or not.
All right, can you let us know your name?
Yared Oliveros.
And we have a couple questions for you. So we're going to go ahead and start. What motivated you to become a planning commissioner? What makes you want to be a planning commissioner?
What or why?
What motivated you to want to become a planning commissioner?
One of the major things is being able to be an advocate between our communities, the city, the staff, the leaders, being able to provide some value from and pull from my experiences that I've had both professionally and community-based. I know that I can be a value-added team member here, and I can certainly give more experiences and examples of what that may look like.
Thank you.
This question we asked in 3 different parts. It's, where do you see Oakley in 5 years? Where do you see Oakley in 10 years? And where do you see Oakley in 15 years?
5, 10, and 15. 5 years from now, I definitely would love to see more economic development here. I think that's been a running story since my time here. I'm originally from Los Angeles, and I moved here about 7 years ago. So seeing the progress that's been made has been wonderful to see. So in 5 years, I would like to see more businesses, obviously, to continue to bring more local employment for folks to not drive too far and spend more time with their families, which is key for a flourishing community. In 10 years, I would certainly like to see more opportunities for agriculture as well. You know, I appreciate that you all are also taking a look at the wine opportunities, the agricultural pieces, what attracts people in a variety of generations to come. I think that's very important. In 15 years, we hope we have more families, more younger families that will come out here and really see as a place for development, not only for their children, but for their families to exceed. And I would also like to see our schools, our education system, to really have big numbers in terms of enrollment, as well as an opportunity for us to exceed in academics.
What do you think is the single most important skill for a planning commissioner to have?
Analytical driven. I think that's very important to be able to analyze data, to really be able to digest it, make recommendations, have a neutral approach, not biased, making sure that you're really in it for the betterment of the community as well as the city. So those are some of the key skill sets that I also have based on my career experiences.
If you are appointed, what do you see your role being as a planning commissioner?
Whatever the job description is plus more in terms of being able to, again, bring some value. And what does that mean? I am definitely diverse when it comes to my career. So I've worked both at Nestle and at Tesla, where I've been a HR manager, a diversity, equity, and inclusion business partner, and currently I'm a contractor for an HR consultant, healthcare provider in Chicago. So being able to drive and pull from those experiences helps me to really be, again, analytical, to provide you all with more of a non-biased approach in some of the decisions that you all make. I am a big advocate actively, with my community, which I think is also a great place to be with a planning commissioner. I've done a lot of wonderful things at Emerson Ranch. I've done national night outs for the past 6 years. We've had attendance between 20 to 70 people, which I think that also helps me to be a great candidate for you all as well, amongst many other things that I've done here.
Good evening. Do you have any scheduling conflicts that could impact your ability to consistently attend planning commissioner meetings, which are scheduled for Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.?
Not at this time unless one of my babies is sick.
All right. How do you see the direction the city is currently headed in terms of development and growth?
Don't take this personally besides the car wash piece, but other than that, I think you all are doing a wonderful job. We obviously select our council members based on what you are also able to bring to the table. I've seen a lot of improvement in terms of even things that the city can offer for our families. Most of the time, we gravitate towards Brentwood because they have a lot of the events, they have a lot of the community-based local businesses, so that's where a lot of it has been happening, but I'm slowly seeing that there's been already these really small changes that are happening here in Oakley, which has been great. Obviously, the development of homes has been wonderful in a way, right? Because we're getting more families to come here and again, more investment into our city, which has also been a good opportunity to see. But again, what can we provide to our families that are here?
All right. Thank you. We will finish up the interviews. You're welcome to take a seat in the audience, and thanks. Good evening. I'm going to have you start off by giving us your name, and then we are going to ask you a series of questions.
All right. My name is J. Connor B. Ortega.
All right, great. So first question is, what motivated you to want to become a planning commissioner?
So I seek this position because I have identified the necessary repairs, the needed improvements, and the opportunities of growth our home offers. And after recently attending the governing board of the Green Empowerment Zone, I learned how our city can be properly cultivated for the ripe green growth that our city offers. And as a new resident of Oakley, I draw my experience from the city planning and, of course, my love for the city of Oakley.
This question will be in 3 different parts. Where do you see Oakley in 5 years? Where do you see Oakley in 10 years? Where do you see Oakley in 15 years?
In 5 years, excuse me, in 5 years, I see the city of Oakley being 1/10 of what San Francisco currently is. In 10 years, I see Oakley in 1/4 of what San Francisco is. And then in 20 years, I hope to see Oakley eventually become big enough to become its own county.
Thank you.
What do you think is the single most important skill for a planning commissioner to have?
This is one of my favorite questions, specifically because of my time in helping a certain board of supervisors in the city of San Francisco, city council members in the city of Los Angeles and Sacramento, and that biggest issue is communication. As we've seen this evening, where we all had different disagreements on a car wash, and of course our residents also have different views on how the city should be maintained. My experience is remedying those issues between what the residents want and what the city council decides. What we have found in recent time is that the city councils of different cities and also the board of supervisors become paralyzed with building anything because of the concern of residences. And of course, out of the confusion of residents who don't understand exactly what the project is, what the details are, and what the implications will be, so much in information gets translated that is incorrect. In fact, there is an example that we faced in 2023, if I may. There was a housing development being considered in Nob Hill, which is west of Chinatown, and the project was very contentious. And it wasn't because it was a type of housing, whether it was affordable or on market rate, but the problem was the building was tall enough to cast a shadow over a school play yard. And the resident there claimed, and I quote, these are his words, "This looming shadow will hamper a child's growth, and in turn, the child will develop retardation long term." Now, to any common sense person, we all go through shadows. We have no problem with them whatsoever. But because the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission refused to inform the community of what exactly this individual was talking about, referencing to, a majority of the residents in that neighborhood was able to fight and kill this project on the sole basis of the resident who claimed that it will cause long-term health issues for children. So that's the biggest issue that we face, especially as planning commissioners who approve projects to go forward to the city council, is making sure that the community residents are on board and understand the project in full.
If you are appointed, what do you see your role being as a planning commissioner?
As a planning commissioner, I see my role as to be a tool in the machine of ensuring that our city continues to grow, but also that we may continue to move forward with our promises in the green empowerment zone that we have put forward in the 5-year plan, of course, of the 10-year plans that we hope to achieve in the years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Do you have any scheduling conflicts that would impact your ability to consistently attend Planning Commission meetings, which are scheduled on Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.?
No, and if anyone who knows me personally knows that I travel between San Francisco, Oakley, Sacramento, Los Angeles on a weekly basis. And in December of 2024, in the anticipation of and hopefully being approved for the Planning Commission, have made my schedule available to be present at every meeting, but also make time to be here at City Council.
How do you see the direction the city is currently headed in terms of development and growth?
So after going over the vigorous strategic plan for Oakley in the years 2022 and 2027 beyond, in collaboration with our city budget and what I've heard from residents in my investigations and polling of each district, my qualifications have notified that, at least to me personally, that we are going to see the same issues that paralyzes big cities like San Francisco and abroad when it comes to permeate issues on upcoming projects. And what I hope to do is remedy those issues.
All right, thank you. You're welcome to take a seat in the audience, and we're going to finish up with our interviews.
Hello.
Good evening. We're going to ask you to state your name, and then we're going to have a series of questions for you.
Yes, my name is Pierre Gowdy.
Awesome. Okay. So first question, what motivated you to want to become a planning commissioner?
I've been living here for 15 plus years. I have a growing family, and I've been watching the city grow. And I was kind of disappointed in myself for not applying when you guys first opened up the commission. So this is my opportunity to come back and get involved, be part of the community. My daughter is also part of the OYAC. So I want to show them that, we can grow and get this and build an economical, viable city.
Thank you.
This question will be in 3 parts. Where do you see Oakley in 5 years? Where do you see Oakley in 10 years? Where do you see Oakley in 15 years?
Ooh, okay. So Oakley to me is very community orientated. It's a small community, but at the same time, we have the ability to do a lot of growth. You've got the Amazon and UPS over here, which have a lot of potential to bring in a lot of income for people that want to work locally, to people that want to just growing the community a lot stronger and stuff like that. So having an Amazon on his own just brings a lot of attention to the city, and that can actually attract a lot of big businesses that want to come through here. And so I can see as long as we're smart and you make the right decisions ethically, you can see Oakley still being a nice tight knit community in 5 years, with minimal growth, but not like something that's just going to blow up. You don't want to have situations where where you blow up too fast and you're not going to be able to sustain it. So 5 years, 10 years down the road, have a little bit more growth going on. I love seeing the community, so I'm hoping that I don't want to see a lot of the vineyards and things like that disappear. But as time goes on, people move on, and but I would like to see Oakley I guess you could say in a sense of like how Brentwood is, a little more growth out. They're getting a lot of attraction on restaurants and businesses like that. They got a Costco through there, so something that's viable for everybody in the community and that we can all like and enjoy. In 15 years, I mean, there's so much that you can achieve here. So that's kind of a difficult question for me because, like I said, I like the tight knit community as it is right now, but I want to see Oakley grow, and I want to see us be a community that can be viable, and people don't have to commute 2 hours, 3 hours away just to make a living.
What do you think is the single most important skill for a planning commissioner to have?
Ethics. You have to be responsible. You want to make sure that you're following the rules, as you just stated earlier with the car wash. Wins win. You got to make sure that you're following the ethics and you're following what the plan scales.
If you are appointed, what do you see your role being as a planning commissioner?
My role would be to create and help develop an economical viable community that helps the residents, the businesses, and environmentally clean community. So,
thank you.
Do you have any scheduling conflicts that would impact your ability to consistently attend planning commission meetings, which are scheduled for Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.?
No, there would be no problem.
How do you see the direction the city is currently headed in terms of development and growth?
I see it in a positive direction. I've been watching just down here in Main Street the growth on the sides and the planning. I've been watching a lot of the planning, like the developments that have been approved recently. Safeway over there on Laurel. I think that's going to be a big boost for the community. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff going that can go down off of Cypress, where the community over there is Somerset. They probably don't like driving about 10 miles away for something to get food.
All right, thank you. We're going to continue on with our interviews. You're welcome to take a seat in the audience.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. We're going to start by having you state your name, and then each of the council members will have a question for you.
Okay, good evening. My name is Pascal Iwo. I live at 437 Diamond Peak Lane. I'm in Oakley, District 3.
Thank you. What motivated you to want to become a planning commissioner?
I think it's more to do with community service. We just moved into Oakley 6 months ago. We used to live in Antioch. Before then, we lived in Emeryville, Alameda County. So I'm community rooted, I have I belong to a lot of organizations within the community, within the East County. I'm a member of NAWCP. So I actually wanted to plug into the city, get to know how the city, understand how the city works. Then secondly, I've been I'm a chemical engineer by profession. Um, and I've been managing projects for the last 16, 17 years. So I work as a consultant. I'm a principal consultant with Pharmatech. So, so I do understand what developmental project is, what planning is, design review. So I think hopefully that with my experience between 17 to 18 years in the private sector, I should be able to help in working with the members of the Planning Commission and give my little quota to the city of Oakley. Also, I was a commissioner of consumer affairs in Alameda County for 3-4 years while I was living over there, and we did a lot of stuff within the commission. In addition, I was also a member of the Urban and Housing Development Commission in Emeryville, the city. So I do have a little bit of experience to offer, but in addition, I think it's more than anything else is the interest I have in Oakley. I also just applied to the neighborhood committee that just came out. It basically shows how much I'm interested in knowing the city, understanding the workings of the city, and getting myself plugged in. Yeah.
The next question we asked in 3 separate sections. Where do you see Oakley in 5 years? Where do you see Oakley in 10 years? Where do you see Oakley in 15 years?
That's a very good question, Mr. Fuller. If I tell you that I know, I'll be lying to you. I don't have the data to say I want to be able to see what Oakley will be in 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years from now. But all I can say is Oakley is a growing city, very cosmopolitan. My son schools at O'Hara Park. I see a whole lot of development, people moving in and out, especially moving into Oakley. I see a lot of population growth, in the city. I see a lot of businesses coming in, into the city. And one of the things that I'm not a businessman, I'm an engineer. I'm a trained engineer. One thing that I probably would like to know more with respect to I'm sure there's a 10-year plan in the city. I haven't taken a look at that, but I know there is. I'm not sure whether there's a 15-year plan. So what I'm trying to see, if I take a look at that, I'll be able to project, what the city will probably be in the next 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. But I wouldn't hypothetically state now that this is where the city is going to be. What I know for sure is that it's growing and it's going to grow, as time goes by. Yeah.
Thank you.
What do you think is the single most important skill for a planning commissioner to have?
I think the planning commissioning basically makes recommendation, to the city council. So I think the ability to listen, to be patient, and to understand the details surrounding some of the developmental efforts and programs that come up that they need to be able to review. It's important for the planning commissioner to be able to look at the details, and that's what I do as an engineer and as a project manager for the last 15, 16 years. I look at the details of the plan, whether it's be the permit or the redevelopmental plan, or to look at environmental, for example, the California Environmental Quality of Act, look at it and be able to make certain decisions within the commissioning, and they'll make the recommendation to the city council. I think it's about listening and being patient and being able to make certain decisions. If your viewpoints are completely different from the other commissioners, you should be in a position to convince them that this is the direction you think you guys should go. But at the same time, it's a 5-member commission. So, the majority carries the vote at the end of the day. But ability to listen, to pay attention to details, which I've done all through my career, is something that I think is a very good skill for the planning commissioner. Thanks.
If you are appointed, what do you see your role being as a planning commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Meadows. I'm just going to be an ordinary member, I think. I'm new. I'm probably going to learn the ropes from the existing commissioners. But one thing that I'm going to leave the city council with is I'm going to try to study as much as I can with respect to how the planning commission works, the issues in the city, what the city council wants us to work on, and be in a position to be able to deliberate with the rest of my co-commissioners, and then give them my own opinions with respect to what we need to do moving from point A to point B. But I think for the first 1 month or 2 months, I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm probably going to be learning from them, with a listening ear, and see how I can learn as much as possible so that my learnings will be able to help me to make better recommendations, to the city council, because ultimately the city council, makes the final decision. The planning commission only makes recommendations, based on what they can see by themselves. And I've done, like I said, I've been a project engineer for the last 16, 17 years. I worked on capital projects, not just within California, but also all over the world, in India, in South Africa, in Nigeria. Developing plants and pharmaceuticals all over the world. So I think if it comes to that, I think I have the training and the skill to be able to decipher, and make the planning decisions and recommendations to the city council.
Thank you.
Good evening. Do you have any scheduling conflicts that would impact your ability to consistently attend planning commission meetings, which are scheduled for Tuesday nights at 6:30?
No, I do not. I looked that into detail with respect to that scheduling. I work from home. I do go to my office at Pleasant Hill probably once every 3 months to have meetings, management meetings. Go pick my kids from school by 4. I'm home. Finish work by 5:30. I play tennis on Mondays and Wednesdays at Diamond Hills. So I do have time for it. And if there's a need for us to have an emergency meeting, this will come first. My tennis will be second.
How do you see the direction the city is currently headed in terms of development and growth?
Yeah, I think thank you, Mayor. Like I mentioned, my wife and I decided to move into Oakley. We did look at various properties in Brentwood and Oakley, as well as Antioch, as well as Discovery Bay. But when we came into Oakley, it was more like a home. So we felt very welcoming. The city, like I said, is growing. And there's a whole lot of opportunity, there's a whole lot of avenues for it to grow in terms of business enterprises, private enterprises, and public arena. The parks are very beautiful in Oakley, very beautiful parks. My children love to go to the parks. So I would definitely want to learn more about, what and what needs to be done for me to be able to, contribute my own quota to the development of the city. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You're welcome to have a seat in the audience, and we're going to take a few minutes.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that delay. Thank you. So I just want to confirm, you don't have a sheet okay,
We do not.
no sheet to rank, so maybe you can use a piece of scratch paper.
We have the sheets we took notes on with our questions.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. So the idea here would be to do a ranking of the candidates as you see fit. And then I believe you could discuss, or was it, I'm sorry, we were going to take the top 3. Yeah, thank you, Josh. The top 3 from all of your lists, we could give those to the city clerk. She could take a look at those and see if any 2 pop out as the top candidates.
Go over that again.
Yeah, sorry about that.
A little bit louder, please.
A little louder, sure. If you could jot down your top 3 in order of how you see them ranked, 1 being the top candidate, 2 being the second, and 3 being the third. We'll collect those, give them to the city clerk. She will look those over, Kim will look those over to see if how you rank those, any 2 candidates come out on top. In other words, if any 2 candidates have a top average ranking above the others.
Thank you.
I need scratch paper.
No problem.
Okay.
How many minutes?
How many minutes? As many as you need.
What?
3 candidates.
No, but 3 minutes. How much time do we have to?
Up to the mayor.
At least 10.
Okay, so you want.
start with this.
So, oh goodness. Okay, so we just want to, based on if you want to review the notes that you took, and we just need to know your number 1 pick, your number 2 pick, and your number 3 pick in order of the way you felt they did. So if you think you need 10 minutes, I would look at Josh to say, should we take a break? Or, I mean, that seems like a lot of time.
I would call for at least a 5-minute break, and then we can resume after you all have done the ranking.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute break. If we need any more time, we'll determine that then. And we will be back in about 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of your patience, for not having that perfectly organized, but we appreciate you being flexible. I believe the city clerk and city attorney, assistant city attorney have tallied the votes. And,
If we could just have an opportunity, if anyone in the public would like to comment on it, I didn't open that up. I want to make sure, because it is agendized, that we offer the public an opportunity to speak. And I believe some of the council wanted to as well. So before we pull that out, before we mention what the result, if we could have just a couple seconds. I don't see anyone in the public, and I have no speaker cards, but I wanted on the record that I asked. And if there were any council, I had a specific request. So Councilmember Williams.
I just really wanted to thank everybody for coming out and applying. I think that the more people that we have that are wanting to get involved and do things with local government, the better as a community we will be. So I really, really appreciate just everyone coming out and wanting to commit your time to this. Regardless of the outcome, I am urging you to please apply for anything and everything that you see. We have lots of opportunities to get involved. Not that many spots on the Planning Commission, so please don't let that discourage you. Please, we really need local involvement, and I really appreciate everybody taking the time to do this. I'm very excited because the Planning Commission is still fairly new, and we really appreciate everybody wanting to participate. So I just wanted to say that.
Councilmember Fuller.
Yes, I've been doing this for 4 years, sitting up here and seeing many candidates come forward. This is the group that is exceptional. Every individual was well prepared, articulate, had the direction, had an understanding of Oakley, what they want to do. They were committed individuals and professional, and it's the best group by far that I've interviewed out of all this. I want to wish everyone the best. I know Ms. Langley in particular, she is a formidable opponent, trust me. I know Ms. Harvey, she's here a lot. I'm getting to know Mr. Ordier too, so thank you. I'm glad to meet you, Mrs. Laurie, and you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
I also want to thank you all for coming out. I have been in your position. I'm not going to be insulted that you're the best group because I did interview in front of Councilmember Fuller as well. But I know how hard it is to stand up in front and answer questions that you don't have access to in the beginning and really try to think about a position and how it's going to impact you when you're not in it to know exactly what it is. So I thank each and every one of you for coming out. And with that, I will turn it over to the city clerk and the city attorney.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. So we did tally up the votes, and the two candidates moving forward would be Carrie Harvey and Yared Oliveros. But if it is the pleasure of the council, we would also consider appointing an alternate.
I'm okay with that if the rest of the council is open to it.
Actually, I think we need, Miss Elizabeth, what are our regulations on accepting? We'd be the first alternate that we've had, so.
There's no preclusion from doing that, but it would be something that we would like to have your input on because it would change some of the language of the resolution that's been presented by staff before you. It would go from 2 to now 2 with an alternate.
All right, the only thing that's going through my mind, other than my dog is getting on me, quite my anti-bark, is that if someone were to leave, normally we would reach back out into the community and give them a chance to come in. So with the alternate, I guess they would be stepping in to fill the vacancy. So I really don't have any objection to it, but we need to realize that there are other people that may want to step in also. So.
In my year, we had somebody that was selected and then had to back out. So I think having an alternate is really smart. We are going to have opportunities later this year for the other seats, those seated in them or anyone in the community. So I think it's smart. That's my opinion, but I will listen to the rest of the council as well. Councilmember Williams?
So I also think it's smart. What do we envision? Would that be, if somebody's just out, then this alternate can step in, or is it more a replacement in case somebody has to back out?
An alternate is a permanent replacement for something like what Ms. Shaw has said.
Okay, great. I think that's great. And then we would just have one alternate. So what if the case is that alternate wants to apply for the permanent seat that are coming? Is that going to preclude that, or would we then sort of go through the same process and then we could just appoint another alternate?
Exactly, almost like an interim. Yes, spot on.
Okay, I think that's great. I think it helps with continuity and we don't have to keep going through the process and let there be gaps. So personally, I feel like that's a great idea.
Councilmember Meadows?
I'm not really for it. I mean, if you're in here in this room and you applied, I hope you're going to fulfill your term. If not, I mean, you wasted your time and our time. So I don't see the need for an alternate.
And I do.
I mean, I just don't. I haven't seen it ever here before. I don't know of any other planning commission that has them. I mean, Elizabeth, you get to see a lot more cities across the state, but I see alternates in some of the other positions we hold and bodies we serve on, but I don't see the need for an alternate at the planning commission.
The only live example that I have, obviously, is when we did the first appointments for the Planning Commission. We had our 4-year and our 2-year. Somebody who had to back out, and because we didn't have an alternate, we had to then redo the community engagement and the process, and that person then missed the opportunity to go to the Planning Commission Academy because we had to go through everything again. So I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, if the person that is the selected person doesn't want to be an alternate, that's up to them, I think, but offering it is, at least in my opinion, a good thing.
And that's probably exactly why it's being offered today, because of some real life experience in our exact governing body when your mayor was serving. But it's at the pleasure of council. If we want to dismiss and continue on with the resolution as written, which is just appointing the two, absolutely.
Councilmember Fuller?
I tend to agree with Councilmember Meadows on the subject. We have a room full of well-qualified individuals, and I want to see them active and involved. We do not have. There isn't another one in an alternate. We don't really have an alternate city council member. Yes, there was a person that left as we were getting ready to swear in the first commission, and that left us with 4 members, but it was 4 members. It was a quorum. We were able to do business, and we were able to re-interview again, and I think that's the most equitable way for the community. It's a tough decision because so many are there, but it just seems equitable to allow the city, if somebody leaves, that, well, I didn't know about it, but I just graduated from college, so I'd like to get a chance to get my hat in the ring.
All right, well, I hear 2 for and 2 against. So any opinion?
I lean that we don't use the alternate, and if we did lose somebody, go through the process again. That's what we've done in the past, and I don't think we're going to lose anybody. So,
all right, there you have it.
Okay, so then our 2 candidates moving forward would be Carrie Harvey and Yared Oliveros.
Thank you, ladies, for tallying all that up and figuring it out. And again, thank you, everybody, for those that applied.
We do need a motion.
Oh.
Second.
No. All right. Was anyone, any more comments, or would someone make the motion?
Move that Yared Oliveros and Ms. Harvey be appointed planning commissioners for the city of Oakley.
For 2 years. 2-year terms.
What's that?
For a 2-year term.
Both of them for a 2-year term. Yes. Okay.
Well, I'll second. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. All right, so item 6.2 is appeal of hearing officer decision regarding 61 Merganser Court. City Clerk.
I need to recuse myself from this item.
Absolutely.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the City Council. So the full history for this case is provided in the staff report, so I'm just going to provide a brief summary. On July 4th of 2024, officers observed 2 minors lighting fireworks in the street directly in front of 61 Merganser Court. A male adult was seen in the garage area, and one of the minors called out "Dad" to the male as the officers approached. The male was notified to cease lighting fireworks. The male stated he understood and would stop. The officer informed him that the City of Oakley would be issuing a citation for a fireworks offense. On July 18th of 2024, a citation was mailed, and on August 5th of 2024, the appellant submitted a request for appeal of the citation, and a hearing was held on August 22nd. The administrative hearing officer's decision affirmed the citation and stated the appellant could file a written appeal of the hearing officer's decision to have the matter heard before the City Council. On September 20th, a written appeal was filed timely and a hearing was scheduled. The appellant is before you this evening to appeal the hearing officer's decision, and staff recommends the City Council review the hearing officer's decision and either confirm or deny that decision. And this concludes the staff report, and we're available for any questions.
All right, do I have any questions for staff? Councilmember Fuller?
Not of staff.
Okay. So then, being that this, I'm sorry, regular calendar and it is agendized, we need to have public comment on this? No, it's up here. Okay, I'm getting obsessed with public comments and want to make sure I don't forget them. Okay, so then we can hear from the appellant and then open it up to questions if we have them for her. Okay, let's go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm contesting this because I didn't know about it until I got a citation in the mail. And immediately I called the office and spoke to someone. And I'm very confused by the process too, which is another reason why I'm here, because I think it's a very easily abused process to give a citation in a mail but not actually take an ID, speak to anyone, nothing, because I wasn't home when this happened. So it was a surprise when I got the citation in the mail. But I'm doing all the groundwork, asking for photos, video, trying to see if it's someone in the neighborhood I recognize. But I live at home alone with my 3 kids, and I wasn't home that night. And I did provide proof that I wasn't home that night. I do not have cameras, though. So, but I did request cameras or video, which they didn't have, to try to, help alleviate some of the stress, because I appreciate the them being on top of fireworks. I don't like the fireworks, which is why I leave with my kids and my dog. We don't like it. And we live in a newer neighborhood that I'm renting, and the lake that we live by is so overcrowded. Like, people bring long chairs. It's like a very saturated on 4th of July. It's very loud and it's very chaotic. So but I wasn't there when it happened, and I don't know what else to do besides just prove that to you the way that I did with a letter and ask for more information. But I know they've done drones in the past, which seems like a easier way to I guess find someone a citation, but to just say that they saw someone out front of the house, my question would be, what do you do in that situation? You know what I mean? If you're being convicted of something that you didn't do, how do I prove I'm not? You know what I mean? Like, there's no way to do that. So I don't agree with the way that they do it. I think there's got to be a better way. I'm sure they see thousands of people in one evening. Based on what the street looked like when I came home, there were fireworks everywhere. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions?
Yes, I'm sorry for these questions I need to ask for my clarifications, but they make you uncomfortable, but that is the intent. But how old are your children?
My daughter's almost 16, my son's 12, and my youngest is 9. And I've been going through a divorce for 2 years, so I live home alone with them.
Who was watching the children?
The children were with me. We went to Sherman Island. Right. The children were with me and my dog. We went to Sherman Island overnight where my mother lives. She's elderly. She lives alone. They were with me. There were no children at the home. We live in a court. I did bring a picture so you can see that where people run back and forth because our court's adjacent to another court. So there's a path that goes to and from, which I can provide that to you if it helps. But I don't deny that there were probably people in the street setting off fireworks. I'm sure that there were, but it was not me.
Okay, so just to be clear in my mind, your children were with you. They were not at the house.
Correct. They were not at the house, no.
Next one's probably a little bit more uncomfortable too, but you are not divorced yet.
I'm not divorced yet, no, but I do have a copy of it. Just to prove that, I did send a message, hey, did you stop my house that evening by any chance? It's a stressful divorce I'm going through, but he's not allowed at the home, so him being there would be very off, especially to hear a kid call his name that was with me that evening.
The reason I ask is, does your husband or your separated husband have a key to the house?
No. Okay. No, there's a court order. He has no access to, not even supposed to be near my home.
Okay, thank you.
I do. So in the hearing, the original hearing, it was stated, the children called out dad, and the male exited the garage.
Mm-hmm. That's the part I'm confused by.
And so that, and that there was no one else in the area appeared to be associated with, no one else in the area that appeared to be associated with that address. So kind of on with Councilmember Fuller asking, is there a brother, a significant other, a uncle, a father, somebody that has access to your home?
Literally no one.
So any way that the garage would have been opened?
No, I do leave my garage open a crack, but I mean this much, and that's just because we've had a mouse problem in the neighborhood, and I don't want them in my garage. So I leave it a crack open, but which it probably was, to be honest. I can't say for sure, but it would not be enough for someone to enter my garage without it being opened.
Because that's honestly where I'm stuck right here, is just the exiting the garage.
Exactly, but I also was confused because if there was no, I'm like, did you ask for an ID? Did you get not even a name? There was nothing given. So,
like you stated, fireworks are going off like crazy on the 4th of July. I mean, we are trying to get, by we, I mean the city, but the officers are trying to get to every call they can and get to the next one and the next one and the next one. If we stopped and spent, all that time trying to do that, and that's why the ordinance was written, that the citation goes to the homeowner instead of trying to decipher who is that. And so that's what we have to go on, and we have to write these things in order to alleviate as much burden on them and be able to do the suppression. So
absolutely, I don't disagree with that at all. Like, I understand the process, but I don't own the home, so the notification actually went to the owners of the home, and they live in China. And I feel bad because I'm living there, so that's actually why I'm just trying to do the right thing, because I didn't do it. But if I'm going to be fined, I'm a small business owner and a single mom, so if I get fined $1,000, I better have done it. Like I'm going to fight that if I didn't do anything, and I did not do anything. So I feel very passionate on that. I wish they would have gotten an ID or even a name. That may have been helpful. I checked with my neighbors that also weren't home. I did due diligence to feel like as much as I felt like I could in that situation, but how else do I prove that it wasn't me if there's nothing? I mean, if this happened again, how do you prove that it's not you? if they don't have a name, a citation, just an address, if you're seeing hundreds of people in one evening, it's possible to make a mistake. No one's perfect, you know, but I don't have anything else to really provide besides a letter that I wasn't home from my mom, because that's where I was, and just that's it. I mean,
Okay, and we don't have any footage of this. It didn't mention that there was any, so do we have any additional information other than what's in our staff report?
I don't believe we do. We don't have any body-worn camera footage on this one. I'm looking at Lieutenant Roberts. Anything to add? No.
Anything to add to the conversation? Yeah, so we're going to have the lieutenant come up. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, I agree with her that she was not, I don't believe she was there, not by the report, but we had officers in an undercover vehicle, and then we had an officer on foot that saw the subject come from the garage. That's why we didn't ask for identification. The officers felt that they had good enough cause that the person came from that residence, and they stated that a citation would be issued in the mail.
Councilmember Fuller?
One more question. Was any property ma'am, of you, did you discover any property missing when you returned home?
no property, no, but there was a couple extra cars in I live in a court, and it was flooded with fireworks, like flooded from there to path to the next court all the way out to the lake. It was bad. My kids helped. We swept it up. Me and my kids did together. So, but I wasn't there to even see what happened, to be honest. So
Okay,
that's
thank
all
you.
I have.
All right, well, I guess we've heard what we're going to hear, and I'll leave it to the council to deliberate and make a motion. I'm just looking at Councilmember Fuller.
Well, if we're in deliberation, my angst is that, from my experience, I'm sure other law enforcement, but people become victims of crime. And in this case, we really haven't ruled out that young ladies in a residence, not because of lack of proper enforcement or whatever, but just we haven't ruled out that she was not a victim of a crime. So I'm leaning to dismissing it on that basis. Law enforcement did what they were supposed to. I do believe that there was a person inside the garage. I do believe that fireworks were going off. But in this case, I'm having a tough time saying that the homeowner is responsible. I can't rule out that she was a victim of a crime. So.
Any other deliberation or a motion?
And so the officer saw him coming out of the garage. Door open, came out of the garage.
I'll go ahead and make a motion if that's what you're looking for. I make a motion that we upheld the administrative hearing officer's decision. And I'd be willing to do some kind of payment program.
All right, I have a motion, and do I have a second?
Would you be willing to reduce the fine?
Sure.
Would you say that again?
Asking if he would be willing to reduce the fine. And if I were to have my say on that, I would say that the burden of proof on both sides, I would be willing to split the difference. 500. I think that the officer observed somebody coming out of the house. You weren't home. That's where I'm at with it. Do you want to change your motion? Or if you're up,
Or it dies because
Yeah, I was going to say.
there wasn't a second.
Yeah,
Oh,
if you want
okay,
to
I'm sorry.
restate, he can restate or
Okay.
advise because no one seconded yet, but.
got it.
yeah.
Okay,
But
so
it does
we have a
need to be
motion.
clarified.
We had not an alternate motion, but a request. So if no second, then I guess the motion dies, and I will entertain. And if it dies, we get another motion? Because we have to uphold it or,
Sounds like you would like a new motion
Yeah.
for splitting the difference, so maybe that could be put into words.
all right, I would like to make a motion to split the difference, uphold the decision, but lower the fine to 500. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, all right. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
All right. So now what?
That works for.
Is there any additional
worry, but
motions
that
that can be entertained?
Yes, so I'm open to entertain any additional motions.
No, the motion, the item dies. It was presented to us and we didn't reach a decision. The issue is dead. It's kind of like you can go home now.
Well, assistant attorney asked if there were any additional motions.
What's that?
The assistant city attorney asked if there were any additional motions. That's why I've asked.
For clarification, because you have not reached consensus, then the item, you have taken no action on the item. Is that what everyone understands?
That's what I'm hearing. It was 2-2. It was presented to us. We discovered, made it. We conducted the quasi-judicial hearing. We weighed the evidence and came up 2-2, which means that the item that we were looking at is not upheld. And I don't think we have to make a motion that we dismiss it. It just the issue is dead. It's mute to me, but you're the legal expert.
You're saying because of the lack of action, it is not upheld, or that the hearing decision officer's decision stands?
No, I'm saying it was not upheld, and so we are not agreeing with the action of we are not agreeing with the action of penalizing the lady that's up here now. That, in other words, we've ended the discussion. But again, you're the legal one. This first time when you have a tie.
It's generally
it's over.
upheld or not. Without action, the last governing body or last person to take action was your hearing officer. So the decision of the hearing officer stands.
Well, I voted no to uphold the hearing officer, so, and I'm still not that the hearing officer, to me, it gets complicated because the hearing officer, I believe, conducted the proper hearing. The law enforcement handled it as we expect in a professional manner. But at the end of the day, the evidence doesn't, for me, compound the upholding the hearing officer. So I could make a motion that we dismiss the hearing officer, but I would imagine we'll come up with the same solution again.
So we're just saying, though, without a consensus, then it would go back to the hearing officer being the final say. So if your wish is to dismiss it, then that motion would have to go through, or at least attempt to go through, But without doing anything and letting it die, then
No action has been taken.
yeah. And it would be then the $1,000 fine and it being that decision.
For fulfillment case reasons, I will move that we dismiss the allegations concerning our litigation.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay. Nothing I was going to say without a second. That motion dies, but you looked like you were going to say something.
I have concerns with how it was all handled. I kind of believe her, but then, I mean, I don't think our officers are out making up stuff. So, what really happened, body cam would be nice.
Councilmember Henderson?
Well, and so and that's why I would split it, because I just don't think we have everything we should have, all the information we should have.
All right, Councilmember Henderson?
So we get into this situation over the last couple of years. We push really hard for our law enforcement officers to go out and enforce fireworks. We get into this situation with the administrative hearing, and this is my third one, and after 3 sets of fireworks, or 4th of Julys. The ordinance is set up that if it's coming off the property, it goes to the property owner. Our law enforcement officers are responding from call to call to call, and we heard nothing but complaints in our August meeting about fireworks. I understand that there's some question and that she's not the property owner and she's renting, but she's trying to do the right thing for the property owner. Dismissing it doesn't send the message that you can't do this in Oakley, and this is the reason we have the ordinances. I'm willing to do some kind of payment plan, but we have to show that the community that we're serious about the fireworks issues. And the only way to do that is when we get up here every year and have these decisions, that we have to show that we're supporting our law enforcement and we're supporting the process. Yes, it would be nice to have body cam. It would be nice to have some of the other things, but this has gone through the process. It went through the hearing. There was sworn testimony as part of the hearing and everything. So we have to rely on that, And again, I can go for a reduced price, but I'd rather see a payment plan than that, or something in there. But we have to show people that we're serious about. Otherwise, we're 4 months away, 5 months away, and we're going to be doing this all again.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one statement since I kind of get left out. There was a strong statement in the citation, in the hearing, and that said, here, 2 police officers, one of whom is a supervisor, witnessed a violation in front of the subject home. An adult male was inside the garage of the home. The children addressed this person as dad, and the person agreed to have the children cease using fireworks. These sworn officers are subject to discipline if they report untrue or inaccurate reports, and they would have no motivation to file an untrue report. Thus, the weight of the evidence tips in the favor of the city's versions, and perhaps had the appellant elected to appear in person during this hearing, some of these 2 stories could have been resolved, but chose to do it in writing. But I just thought that was a really strong statement, because we hold our officers to such a high standard. We are constantly making them, go through all these trainings and all of this stuff that we expect the top quality, especially with our Oakley officers. We really do take pride in hiring the best of the best. And so that is why I am not in favor of completely dismissing it, because of that statement, really, that spoke to me. On the other hand, body cam footage would have made this a no-brainer, which is why I was for splitting it. I think that I agree. You were not the one home, like you said in your letter. I am not a male. I'm a female. And you have the going to your mom's. I can't, though, in good conscience, know that somebody else wasn't at your house, and that it does go to the homeowner. And like Vice Mayor Henderson said, we are trying to take a really strong stance on this. So it's not it's nothing personal to the person. It's really what we are trying to do for the whole city. So I just wanted to get that out because I will lose my thoughts. So Councilmember Fuller.
I believe, well, for me, Councilmember Henderson brought up, or Vice Mayor Henderson brought up a point that I hadn't thought of, and I appreciate it, but why isn't the property owner here?
I did contact them as soon as it happened to let them know that I received the citation. And the owners, it's a property company out of San Jose, but the owners of the actual home live in China. There would be no way for them to dispute this. It would be very difficult, which is why I'm here too, because I feel like it's the right thing to do. It wasn't me either, obviously, but how would they dispute it from China? They're not going to be able to do that. But they do have they have a copy of my lease, who's on it. I brought copies of that. I have photos, you know. I would be curious how many citations they gave out that night. Hundreds, thousands? How are you keeping track of all that? I live in a court. It could have been another house next to me. I'm just saying I don't know, you know. But to fine me $1,000 when he clearly said I wasn't there does not seem like the right thing to do. And I don't know what kind of example you're making, because how many people come in here with this exact situation? Probably not very many.
The next question is, and it'll be the last one, but the property manager and others have keys to your house.
No, they don't, because I rekeyed my house with a code.
You're the only one with the key to
I
the house.
mean, me and my kids, but my kids were with me.
Okay, thank you.
So there were 14 citations this last 4th of July, because the citations are going out to the ones that are very clearly in a home. It's 14. So while, yes, there are thousands of calls, there's not necessarily thousands of citations, because a lot of things have to be taken into effect to make sure that it's clear, the residents. So I just wanted to, you asked the question, I wanted to give you the answer.
Yeah, because if you go on Oakley Facebook page, the videos are crazy, like 14 citations.
So I live at the park you were talking about. I literally live by that.
You're going to find me, and I clearly wasn't even there.
So,
like, I don't know what example that's making is what I'm saying. Like,
the example we're making, but it's not finding you, we find the homeowner. You're choosing to fight it because you're
I'm guarantee you they're going to probably kick me out or penalize me for this.
Okay, but I'm just letting you know what we're saying is we have to make this ordinance, and we agreed as a council that it's going to be responsible of the homeowner.
But they do not have proof. They don't have any proof. I'm being honest. Okay. If you had proof, a photo, anything, I wouldn't be here right now.
Okay, Councilmember Meadows?
So as a landlord, I mean, if my tenant gets cited, well, if I get cited because my tenant lit fireworks, and I'm going that, I mean, that $1,000 going to the tenant, you know, so, yeah.
Correct.
And if they don't, I mean, yeah, you could potentially be evicted, potentially.
I will. I'm on a month-to-month right now. And there's it's not hard. Getting that rental was very hard for me because of my divorce and income, but that's beyond the point. My whole point is.
It's kind of hard to get rid of you too, so.
Huh?
Okay, go ahead.
Can we try and work on
I
splitting
can
the
restate
difference?
my motion if you'd like.
So we had a motion on the floor. It didn't have a second. A lot of conversation happened. I want to give it an opportunity for a second, which was dismissing it altogether.
So I'd like to re-motion this, and I'll reduce it down to $500. But I want to approve the administrative hearing's decision was.
I'm sorry, can you restate that one more time?
So we'd reduce the fine to $500, and we would uphold the administrative hearing officer.
Second.
All right, so we have a first, we have a second to uphold the administrative officer's decision, but reducing the fine to $500. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4 to nothing with Councilmember Williams recusing herself. All right, thank you.
They'll mail me something. Does that come in the mail?
Sorry, City Manager, will she receive a reduced citation in the mail?
Yes, we will take care of that. It will go to the property owner.
The property owner? Okay.
Can't she just bring in a check to the city?
Yeah, we
Cash
could work it out that way too. Do you have a card? Do you have a card?
When's it going to be mailed by? So then she has a date. She could know that she has to have it in.
Mr. Strelo is going to give her his card, and she can communicate directly with him and work that out.
Thank you.
Instead of having to have it mailed to the homeowner, you guys can have a conversation and figure that out. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to give Councilmember Williams a chance to rejoin us. Okay, we are going to move on to item 6.3, which is adopt a resolution improving and establishing a citywide governance policy for elected officials. City Manager Joshua McMurray.
Good evening again. So the staff report provides a lot of background, but essentially an item was brought before the council at the last city council meeting to talk about the strategic plan and to seek direction if there was any desire to change, amend, or revisit the strategic plan. No direction was given. Everyone said the strategic plan was looking good. After that item ended and at the request for future agenda items, Mayor Shaw requested a item be brought back to the city council to address governance as a whole for the city council now that we are fully districted with the completion of the November 2024 election. So we're fortunate because we are not the first city to be in districts, and there are many examples of this that we had an opportunity to review. And what staff has done is come up with a list of 12 items, governance principles, if you will, that have been presented in the staff report. These are by no means all the items. If there are issues or areas that the council would like to address, we could definitely entertain those and add those in. But as written, we feel like it captures the spirit and intent of really prioritizing projects, using data to drive decisions, ensuring we maintain the same kind of professional working relationship, and all of those things that you all are doing now, but just really reaffirming those governance principles. So with that, staff does recommend that the City Council adopt the resolution, which would adopt these, and therefore these would be required to be signed by the electeds. I'm available for any questions, and that concludes my presentation.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify, signed each time they were reelected, reappointed, or so each election season?
Each election cycle, yep.
Okay. Any additional questions? Councilmember Williams.
Yes, I like that we're reflecting this in a policy. I think if the house across the street is burning down, but it's not in my district, I'm still going to want to help them. So I think this is important that we're looking at the city as a whole as a city council, even though we're elected to districts. I think the one sort of hang up I have in this is if there is an issue happening, say in my district, that a resident, I can't read the map, so who knows if residents can read the maps. If there is an issue that's happening, I would like there to be some sort of process to pass that person on, right? So I know I jump into a lot of things, but if it's not my district, I think it is good to speak with the resident and figure that out, but also then make sure that their district person knows, because if their district person isn't informed of something, that's sort of it's not fair for that district to be, that council member to be held sort of responsible for no action when they weren't aware of the situation. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
So you're not necessarily saying pass it on to them. You're saying a process to make them aware.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, it doesn't need to be, I mean, maybe somebody just feels more comfortable with one person or the other, which I think is everybody's right to do that. But I think out of respect and to make sure that there's some follow-ups that happen, I think that council member should at least be made aware, hey, I had this conversation.
And like you said, they may not even know who their council member is.
Correct.
Okay. So I just wanted to clarify the pass along and advice. So, Councilmember Fuller?
Yes, we're a general law city, right?
Correct.
I believe the policies reflect that. I understand. Having just survived the election with my colleagues sitting in the audience wearing Oakley Chico T-shirts, I don't think anybody has a complaint that they didn't have an opportunity to influence the election in mine, and I prevailed. So that needs to be put aside because I won the election. When Mayor Shaw said, "Well, my feelings were hurt," because a person came up and said, "Well, I can't talk to you about this because I'm not in your district." And that's words I had, and her feelings were hurt. Well, I think we have to accept that if somebody comes up and says, "I don't want to talk to you because I want to find my own district person," or "You're not in the district," then that's life in the city now. So this works. The biggest thing is the coming over and, "Oh, well, I feel sorry for you because Councilmember Fuller won the election, so I'm here if you need it. Come on, I'll make sure you're taken care of." I might have a few words about that, but I think it works. The only other thing that I'm here, and I'm still concerned, and when Councilmember Williams went to China as a representative of the city of Oakley, if we're going to do that, then we need to approve that the council member is a member of the city delegation, that when they're just not going over there to talk. I'm still bothered by it. We're on the precipice of war with China. We're having difficulties in trade with China, and yet it went in, and actually, I got to say, the city staff said the same thing to my colleagues. Never heard. I found it out in the newspaper, and I think that's got to stop. It doesn't mean you can't go, but you got to bring it up to the dais and let them go. So the governance works, but I think it has to be with that in spirit, cooperation.
Okay, so about my feelings being hurt, it was a member of my district that was told that they shouldn't talk to me. And so that was what my concern was, is we shouldn't have residents telling other residents not to talk to, especially because it was my district. But I wouldn't stop them from talking to you in District 5 or any other council member. My big thing for this is when we campaign, now that we are districts, we are campaigning and focused on our neighborhoods and our parks and our streets and our voters, and that's great because that's how we get elected. But then once we're up here, we have to understand that the city has, a process of when things get done, and we can't just say we want to make sure that we made these promises during our campaign, and so we're going to now be up at the dais and only focus on those. I wanted this so we can say, like, we are here to help all residents. We are here to make decisions for a city as a whole, and I get why we campaign the way we do, and I did it. I was one of the first to run in a district. I just really wanted to make sure that we are all on the same page. And as a reminder, each time that there's a new person in this seat or we are re-elected for this seat, that we just have this gentle reminder that that's what we're doing, because elections can get crazy and they can get, at least some up here didn't have opponents and they were reappointed. Others, had to fight for their spot. And I want to respect each and every one of you on how you got here. So this also is just making sure that we remember what our job is once we're here. Councilmember Williams.
You actually really just summarized everything that I was going to say. I think we should be sticking to what the policy is. There's a lot of extraneous dialogue that had nothing to do with policy. So I think we should be talking about if this city governance document works to manage the whole city. And I think it outlines it really well. So as long as we can have some sort of addition to putting in something about some sort of handoff. I don't know if that even needs to be formally in here, except I would like the council member in each district to know, hey, this was a conversation that was happening. If it has to go through the city manager, so we don't have to worry about any potential like Brown Act, totally fine. I just think that the city council member of that district should know. So if we can include some language, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I have one more
Yeah.
statement.
Yes, Councilmember Fuller.
Yes, I believe the government puts that across, and what I liked about it was in a couch position. It addressed diversity, equity, and inclusion. It said that the budget will be diversified and spread across evenly and not favoring one district or another. That in the process, we will ensure equity between the districts. They'll go there, and that was somewhat of my campaign. But if a district member sees that what they believe and have evidence of an inequitable situation for their district, I believe it's the responsibility of the district council member to speak up and resolve that issue and bring the evidence up that it is inequitable. It's not diversified. It's not equitable. It's favoring the rest of the city while letting one district slide off to the side in terms of allocation of resources. So that is a responsibility of a district individual, and I have no qualms of bringing up something that if after my investigation I believe that in District 5 that they're not receiving a just amount or justice in terms of equity with the rest of the city. That it needs to be equity throughout the city, and that's part of the equity, and it is addressed in that governance. I don't want to go back in the governance resolution. I don't want to go back each individual line, but it's addressed several times throughout there on the equity between districts.
Councilmember Meadows.
I didn't really think we needed this in the first place, to be honest. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't support it, but to Councilmember Williams' point about, if somebody comes to me has an issue in her district, I'll tell you right now, I mean, I can't promise you I would always bring it to your attention, not maliciously, but I mean, I just got things to do in my life like all of us do, and sometimes, I mean, I guess we all talk to a lot of people, but I mean, I talk to a lot of people, and there's conversations I have that I'm just going to tell you that it's not feasible. So, and it's not going to happen as far as potentially as far as I'm concerned.
I'm sorry, what's not going to happen?
I can't report back on every conversation that I have with people in one of your 4 districts. I mean, maybe if it's a big enough point, yeah. But I mean, if somebody's coming to me, I can't sign my name to something that says in every situation somebody comes to me for District 5 that I'm going to call you up or I'm going to let Mr. McMurray know that they have an issue to pass it on. I can't make that promise. I mean, I talked to a lot of people, and
I'll confess, if I'm in the grocery store and somebody comes up, hey, how do I do this in the city? And I would say, well, contact Mr. McMurray. And I would say, you may want to cost your district person and go on my way. I agree. There's the intent is, I don't even read to hear where you have to run back and forth and keep track of whose district it was. But if you're coming up and looking for a permit to build some sort of housing situation in District 5, I think the district council members should know about that.
Councilmember Williams.
Okay, so then my request is pretty stable to what it's been since we redistricted. Those maps are illegible, so we should at least arm our residents with knowing who their person is that they can contact if they have this issue, right? Because a lot of the times it is, I don't know who my person is, and those maps are reprehensible, so.
And just to address that specific point, we just looked at a new GIS layer that was just created, that we've created, our staff here, and we're going to be pushing that out very soon. So the map is going to be very easily readable, and you're able to input your address and see exactly what district you're in.
Perfect. So that will solve a lot of the issues. I just think that we should be aware of the things that are happening in our district, and just because a resident can't read it, that puts it at an unfair advantage. And out of respect for everybody up here, if I know that somebody doesn't live in my district, the first thing I say is, hey, have you reached out to this person as well? Because I feel like people should be, but if there's too many conversations that happen, no problem. I get it.
Councilmember Meadows.
I mean, it's not malicious. I'm going to tell you, I can't remember everything. And it's not really, in my mind, somebody coming up and say, hey, I live in District 5, but how do I build a house? Or what do I need to do to pull a building permit? I mean, that's, to me, no big deal. But I mean, if somebody comes up to me in District 5 and says, hey, there's this house with all these code enforcement violations, to me, that's a little different, and maybe then, I want to bring it to your attention.
Yeah, and that's exactly the intent. Obviously, you can't record every single conversation you have with everybody. So I'm just saying, if it's something that you would want brought to your attention, I think that's sort of a rule of thumb. And if people aren't comfortable putting in a document, that's fine. I think the maps being redone will solve a lot of that issue too, because I really do think, half the time people were like, even this election, they were like, something's wrong. Nobody's name is on the ballot. I don't get to vote for any of my city council members. So we're clearly not doing a good enough job right now. It's new. So that's, I think, if they're used to a certain level of follow-up, that's where my concern is, that they won't necessarily get that same level of follow-up if they don't know who they're supposed to be following up with.
I'll second the motion.
All right, I still have Councilmember Henderson.
And I think this all comes down to what everybody's been saying here is just, some common courtesy. And it's good to have a policy and some guidelines, but it goes back down to just doing your job and doing your job right, and knowing that that if you think it's in somebody else's district, you can reach out to one other council member without a Brown Act thing. Or if you're concerned that somebody else already knows about it, we hit our city manager and he's able to do that, and we're not doing the Brown Act. But, it's basic courtesy. And I think if you know that something doesn't seem right, you're going to do that courtesy. I agree with Councilmember Meadows. You can talk to 25 people during a week of different things, but if it's something that, kind of puts the hair on the back of your neck or makes you think, it's worth that extra second to make that phone call.
Okay, so I want to clarify. We had an original motion, but that motion had the addition of that additional information and a second.
I'll amend my original motion, because I think we at least know what we're doing
Just want
here.
it on the
Yes.
record.
I'll call the question.
Yeah, so I just clarifying, so you're saying as is?
As is.
Thank you, and we have a second. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, 7.1, it's got a little shift around, so we're gonna do the Oakley reports before the city manager report. So any reports from council members, liaisons, committees, anything you serve on? All right, Councilmember Henderson.
Since our last meeting, I have attended 2 Iron House Sanitation District meetings and 1 Diablo Water District meeting. I also was invited to lunch with the senior center and talked about what work we've done with the subcommittee, and I know that's all coming to us probably next month. So thank you.
Councilmember Meadows.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Henderson.
Sorry.
Since our last meeting, I attended a CCTA meeting where we heard a presentation on the Richmond Parkway Transportation Plan, and we voted on low-income fare equity life program. I believe it was a total of $880,000. $400,000 of that goes to Tri-Delta Transit, and that is, I believe, to give out 10 free one-way passes per month to seniors disabled. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
Okay, it's been busy. So I attended a conference regarding city obligations for housing inspections, receiverships, enforcements due to some new laws that passed in January. Delta Protection Commission was a very long meeting. Lots of stuff very pertinent to hear, though. There is a national heritage area that was federally approved, so that just happened. There is a potential for some Prop 4 funding, so staff is researching. Specifically for Contra Costa County, there was collaboration with the general plan update for Contra Costa County on their 2045 general plan. The other thing that they did heavily in Contra Costa is they flagged the issue of lost agricultural land on Jersey Island of potentially 180 acres due to the proposed giant garter snake mitigation bank that is being proposed to be there. That's a banking agency that sells credits to entities needing mitigation to offset regulated impacts to the species. So I guess that's what they're proposing right now for Jersey Island. And the Delta Protection Commission was against that. We had a long conversation from a UC Davis scientist about the striped bass slot limit proposal. I wish the chief was here because I said bag about 13 times and I got lots of cheers. But since the 1970s, striped bass plus salmon and steelhead trout have all been in steep decline. And 40 to 50% of all NorCal anglers fish for striped bass. So they're proposing a new slot limit of 20 to 30 inches. The current regulations allows for 18 inches, which impacts females ever becoming sexually mature. This is important to us specifically in Oakley because anglers spend $2.4 billion while fishing. It contributes 35,000 jobs, and it does have a $5.6 billion impact on the state's budget. The single largest stressor for the declining fish populations are all the water project operations and diversions, specifically the Delta Conveyance projects. So there was a lot about all of that. We also had a hearing about, we had a conversation about the golden mussels and how impactful that is to out here. So while they're trying to stop the spread over land by clean, drain, dry, the deltas, all of that, the conveyance just allows the golden mussels to spread, and that's becoming problems in all of our agriculture, land, watercrafts. So it's a huge issue. They've got a whole task force for it. Tri-Delta Transit meeting, we had new appointments from Brentwood. We are now joined by Mayor Meyer from Brentwood, and then Pittsburgh Councilmember Lopez. There is a new bill being introduced, SB 63 by Wiener and Jesse Arreguin, creating a revenue measure for Bay Area transportation. So more to come on that. For all you BART riders, the BART Pittsburgh Center will be shut while they replace the fare gates. They're expecting it to take 5 to 7 days, but Tri-Delta Transit is looking into bus bridge. We did a mid-year budget review. Let's see. I attended the Cal Cities Policy Committee on Community Service, and I did give a recap. There was a lot of information, but some really important things that we talked about. We had a presentation from the California State Librarian, Greg Lucas, and he was saying that libraries build community and resiliency, and his quote was, "There's nothing that libraries do but give." And I think this was an important statistic. We currently only give 60 cents per person for libraries. So he was giving some really good ideas about additional funding sources and things like that. So really good conversation, and I was really happy to make that connection. Our next presenter there was also talking about childcare and specifically the Emergency Childcare Bridge Program, which a lot of communities don't know about, but that's a very important resource for foster families or anyone who takes in a child in an emergent situation. You have free childcare through your county, but not everybody knows about it. And we talked about the necessity for childcare for economic development for all cities. We also reviewed the budget, which hopefully everybody has seen that. There's a couple of bills that Cal Cities is sponsoring. One is to exempt murals from the state requirement of having a contractor's license. The other one is about sober living homes. This is very applicable to some things that are happening in Orange County, but they are sponsoring bills there. And also a bill about needle exchange programs, again, really targeted sort of at Orange County, but it's just increasing transparency. And I think that is everything I went to.
All right. Since the last meeting, I attended the California League of Cities East Bay Board of Directors meeting. I also attended CCTA in the audience as an alternate. Thank you, Councilmember Meadows, for introducing me and unlocking the door so I can get in. I attended Tri-Delta Transit, but you guys have heard the update on that. I also attended a Cal Cities Policy Committee, and mine is on public safety. It was a pretty heated discussion because the league got together and decided on their top priorities, and public safety was not one of them. And my policy committee took some big issue with that, and there was a really long conversation and an argument, and where most of the people that were there, elected or chiefs or whatnot, they say they run on public safety. How can it not be in here? And their answer was, well, Prop 36 passed and the retail theft bill passed, so we kind of checked that box. That just enraged everybody a little bit more. So we as a committee made a motion to request the board to reconsider their priorities and add public safety into that. It's up to the board, but well, we weren't going to take no for an answer. Our work plan is focusing on wildfires with insurance, Prop 36 implementation, and law enforcement's role in tackling homelessness. That's what the committee decided. And then we also had Speaker Jonathan Raven from, I'm not sure where he was from. I didn't write that down. Talking about the importance of aggregation with Prop 36 and for stronger prosecution, and also reviewing the ability to review past misdemeanors to determine if they can upgrade them to felonies, so we can get these repeat offenders to stop. And that was pretty much how that turned out. I did go to a crab feed this weekend for the Brentwood Dolphins, which do have some Oakley residents in the swim club, so I was happy to represent Oakley at that. And that's all I have. So item 7.1B, request for future agendas. Does anyone have any future agenda item requests? Seeing none, we'll go to 7.2A, city manager.
Good evening again. Don't have any reports, but you will note that the 2024 annual report is attached to the agenda. And we are pleased to present that. And after tonight's meeting, we will be pushing that out on social media as well. But it's a great way to kind of get a snapshot of our operations and our areas of focus and what we've done in this past calendar year. So if there are any questions, happy to answer them, but we wanted to make sure that you all saw this before we push it out.
All right, thank you. We have no work sessions, no closed sessions. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Do you have questions for Mr. McMurray?
Yes, I thought it was a great annual report, and it shows that things are, I think, a great improvement from last time. He even had the number of public records requests from the city clerk, which I mentioned last time. So I think it's going on. I think there is an elephant in the middle of this council chambers, and sometimes I think it's a woolly mammoth, but despite that, we're moving along in a pretty advantageous manner, and thank you for that.
All right. Sorry, I didn't see that button pushed. I'm still getting used to this. All right, no work sessions, no closed sessions, and there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.